Chapter 593. The dignified Dixian was dragged down to the same level as a king pill-level ant in a life-and-death contest. This was simply a disgrace to the Dixian world. The disgrace of Dixian, by Zay, waited for a long time in the arena that he built with his own hands, full of resentment, before he saw his opponent casually descend. Finally here? Bai Zay couldn't wait any longer. He didn't even wait for his opponent to take his stance, and had already called out his own immortal treasure. Of course, now that it had been suppressed to the level of spiritual treasure, even the immortal spirit in the immortal treasure was blinded and became muddle-headed. It was a golden seal. It was only as thick as a finger, but its bottom was engraved with complicated and dazzling patterns. Following the appearance of the seal, the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual chi underwent a drastic change. Hey, you're showing your cards so calmly? I didn't expect you to have some good points. Wang Wu was somewhat surprised and praised. Bai Zay sneered, there's no need to hide the head and show the tail for a trash like you. Wang Wu said, I want to say that your good point is that you're stupid enough. Do you think I'll praise you for being frank? How shameless do you have to be to think about the enemy's praise? Bai Zay was able to cultivate all the way from the mortal realm to the peak of the cultivators, which naturally showed that he was outstanding. However, when it came to the battle of tongues, he was far from being comparable to the master of non-phase peak. I will torture you to death. Having said that, Bai Zay made the first move. An earth immortal expert could shake the earth and mountains with just a lift of his hand. The ground within a radius of a few miles shook and cracked under his movement. He fully demonstrated the power of an earth immortal. He didn't use more power than the king pill level. It could even be said that because of his pride as a Dixian, he suppressed his power a bit lower. If an ordinary peak king pill user could wield a power of 10,000, then a few special people could wield it in the tens of thousands, such as Wang Lu and Xianghua, who were deluxe king pill users, could even accumulate up to 100,000. Therefore, it was understandable that Dixian Bai Zay suppressed his output to around 100,000. However, not only did he not refer to this highest standard, but he suppressed his strength to a level that was even lower than that of an ordinary king pill, at most 8 or 9,000. However, although the quantity was small, the quality was ridiculously high. The method of controlling the power was even more exquisite, and it was an eye-opener. None of this was beyond the scope of a king pill. Bai Zay had perfectly suppressed his power, but even so, standing at the height of Dixian and controlling a king pill level battle, it was still an absolute suppression for an ordinary king pill. This earth-shaking move was enough to make most of the king pill in the 9 regions blush with shame. As soon as Bai Zay made his move, he unleashed his full momentum, intending to win in a crushing manner. However, in the face of Bai Zay's full momentum, Wang Wu interrupted him with only one sentence. Wait a minute. Boom. Bai Zay abruptly stopped his magical power from going berserk, and the surrounding cracked ground also calmed down. What do you want to do? Wang Wu lightly said, I haven't said anything yet and I'm not ready yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Don't tell me you want to make a sneak attack? Do I need to make a sneak attack to deal with you? Humph, that's hard to say. In short, I have to do some warm-up exercises first. During this period, please help yourself. Okay, I'll wait for you for a while. In any case, you're going to die sooner or later. Thus, Wang Wu began the long preparation work. At this time, she fully exerted her advantage as a woman to the limit. Under Bai Zay's impatient gaze, she slowly took out a makeup box and then began to apply rouge and powder in a slightly rusty manner. After applying the makeup, she began to draw eyeliner, put on lipstick and brush her eyelashes. Not to mention that in the arena, Bai Zay's blood vessels were about to burst. Many of the Dixian onlookers outside the arena also sucked in a mouthful of cold air. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen such a shameless one. And Wang Lu's face also slightly twitched. When did you ever put on makeup in the Spirit Sword Mountain? Even when you attended the foreign guest conference, you still put on makeup. You didn't even wash the wine stains on your clothes. At this time, you actually pretended to be a delicate woman who loved to be beautiful. Your chastity is about to pierce the sky, okay. Xian Mo asked, is she using psychological attack? It's useless. Although Bai Zay is a bit reckless, he won't fall for this kind of trick. Or for him, there's no difference whether he falls for it or not. If she bet on this, I'm afraid she'll be in danger. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu sighed and said, psychological attack? You underestimate her too much. To deal with Bai Zay, she doesn't need any psychological attack. Right now, she's purely flirting with her opponent, which has no practical significance. Flirting? With her opponent? Wang Lu shook his head and didn't say anything more. Because even if he told the truth, it would be difficult to win people's trust. And the fact was more powerful than any argument. As long as they continued to watch, they would naturally know the power of the number 1 king pill in 9 regions. Of course, in theory, after seeing the strength of the later generations in the same stage, these Dixians should firmly oppose the division of stage. However, if they lost this fight too miserably, to the point where it was difficult to explain it with any reason, then it would be a good thing instead. Those who could rise up against the immortals in that era were by no means weak and incompetent. A tragic defeat would only double their desire to fight. Therefore, the Wanxian League spared no expense to hire Wang Wu to fight the first fight. In terms of actual combat ability, there were so many supreme-level powerhouses in the Wanxian League, so it was not her turn to come forward. However, the one with the biggest difference in actual combat power and stage was definitely her. If they wanted to beat the Dixian stupid through fighting, Wang Wu was the first choice of the Wanxian League. It was also because of this that Wang Lu could help her extort the sky-high commission of tens of millions of spirit stones. Next, it was time for her to prove her worth. Have you played enough? I can't wait indefinitely. After half an hour, Bai Zhe finally couldn't hold back anymore and began to urge her. The golden stamp in his hand was repeatedly turned dozens of times by him. Moreover, the blood totem you painted on your face, are you trying to create a visual illusion? Unfortunately, it has no effect on me, so don't waste your effort. Wang Wu didn't care about her painstakingly dressing up and being evaluated as a blood totem at all. She calmly wiped off all the decorations on her face with a handkerchief and then took out the emerald green bamboo sword in her hand. Bai Zhe said with a smile, "You want to fight me like this? You don't choose a favorable environment, and you don't take out your own spiritual treasure?" Wang Wu said, "Non-phase method adapts to any environment, and to deal with you, my thick, long and hard bamboo is enough. In short, it's much better than your short stamp." Courting death. With that, Bai Zhe could finally go all out without any scruples. This time there was no earth-shaking power. Bai Zhe just pressed the golden stamp in his hand forward. The next moment, Wang Wu's complexion changed, and the emerald green bamboo sword in her hand also moved forward. At the same time, the sword began to grow. Between the bamboo joints, 4 branches sprouted, vaguely turning into a human shape. As soon as the human shape was formed, the whole bamboo turned into a cloud of flying ash. However, soon Wang Wu waved her left hand and not far away, a small tree rose from the ground and flew toward her. In mid-air, countless invisible sword chi repaired and transformed it into an emerald green wooden sword that contained the vitality of the whole tree. Finally, with a bang, it fell into Wang Wu's hand as a replacement. This move was performed smoothly, but the expression on Wang Wu's face became particularly serious. "Quite a good instant kill, I've underestimated you a bit." With that, Wang Wu waved her left hand again. In the woods, more than 20 trees were summoned by her magical power, and then each of them was transformed into a wooden sword, floating beside Wang Wu. Bai Zhe was also extremely shocked when he saw this scene. Never had he imagined that his sure-kill attack would actually be blocked by someone. His attack just now was extremely fast and without any warning, but that woman was actually able to react. Moreover, from the more than 20 wooden swords around her, even if he used the negation technique again, it would still be blocked. And judging from the power he used now, it was impossible for him to continuously negate her dozens of times. However, you're just looking for trouble by doing this. Obviously you can die a bit faster. Now, let me negate everything about you bit by bit. As he spoke, Bai Zhe also summoned more immortal treasures, a set of 13 immortal treasures that were similar to the golden seal, but slightly different in size. Negation seal? Outside the field, there was a faint exclamation from the Dixian. Wang Lu asked Shen-Mo, "What is that?" Shen-Mo said, "That is Bai Zhe's Tao. He relied on the Tao of negation to walk all the way to the peak of the immortal path, and is only half a step away from ascending. It is very powerful. Simply put, it is to negate everything that he wants to negate. You see how he usually speaks and does things like this. As soon as you speak, he will immediately sing a different tune. If you throw out an argument, he will immediately refute it. In fact, that is the specific manifestation of the Tao of negation." Wang Lu narrowed his eyes. "You're talking about the Tao of Chinibyu? Do not underestimate him. With his temper, he was able to become the deputy of the organization. The power of the Tao of negation is really convincing to all of us. In this battle, he wants to suppress himself to the level of the King Pill. You have not seen the power of the Tao of negation to distort cause and effect, but even so, his power is not something that a cultivator at the level of the King Pill can compare with. I have fought with both of you, and I know that your master's strength is far greater than the average King Pill, but you will soon realize that choosing Bai Zhe as your opponent was a mistake. Listening to Xian Mo's solemn words, Wang Lu also roughly guessed that Bai Zhe's Tao of Negation was a kind of concept-level technique. Its level was far beyond ordinary spells, and it could be called an immortal technique. This difference in level was a difference in quality, and it could not be made up for with quantity. It was just like a millionaire who could take away a life with a rough iron dagger worth 3 copper coins. Immortal techniques were techniques that could be used to crush others at a higher level. Since he had yet to comprehend the immortal technique in the immortal world, Bai Zhe was indeed worthy of the title of Dixian. It was not just self-boasting to boost morale. In Wang Lu's impression, there were only a handful of people in the entire 9 regions who could truly master the immortal technique. When his own primal chaos heaven-splitting sword was cultivated to the highest level, it could also have the magical ability equivalent to the immortal technique. However, to reach the highest level, even with the qualification of Void Spirit Root, it was not something that could be completed in 3 to 5 years. However, there was no need to worry about Wang Wu at all. Although he didn't know whether the 110 layers of non-phase method could really resist the immortal technique, Wang Lu firmly believed that Wang Wu would never lose this 10 million spirit stones battle. Chapter 594. The situation in the arena was very depressing. There was no earth-shattering power, nor was there any reversal of the river or the sea. The arena that Bai Zhe painstakingly built to adapt to the needs of the 5 elements was only a small part of it. First of all, Wang Wu completely gave up on the offense. In fact, she didn't have a good offensive method, she just used her non-phase method to consolidate her defense. And after Bai Zhe cast out his negation seal, his moves became silent. In fact, in a real high-level contest, causing a large-scale change in the world was a bad thing. To disperse the limited power to meaningless destruction of the environment was a sign of insufficient power control. But in any case, the fight between Wang Wu and Bai Zhe was really depressing. For the audience with poor eyesight, the 2 people were just standing in the middle of the arena, facing each other. From time to time, Wang Wu threw out the broken wooden sword in her hand and replaced it with a new one. Bai Zhe, on the other hand, pressed a golden stamp forward after a period of time. The fight lasted for half an hour, and the 2 people didn't even move half a step. Only those who knew the inside story could understand the danger hidden in this depressing fight. Every time Wang Wu threw out the sword in her hand, it meant that she had suffered a fatal blow. And every time Bai Zhe flipped the golden stamp, he exerted a higher level of pressure on the opponent. After another half an hour of seesaw battle, Wang Wu finally used up the wooden sword in her hand, and she didn't make a new one. Bai Zhe raised his eyelids. Finally finished? Your patience is more amazing than I thought. Your Jade Mansion has formed the King Pill so your magical power can be freely generated. However, the magical power that was negated by me will never be recovered. You've withstood my negation seal more than 20 times. As a cultivator of the King Pill, your patience is worthy of praise, but that's it. Next, don't rely on the wooden sword as a substitute. Feel the power of the immortal technique and understand the gap between you mortals and Dixian. With that, he reached out to pick up the largest negation seal floating in the air and thrust it forward. At the same time, Wang Wu staggered back 2 steps and closed her eyes. This seal negates your eyes. Bai Zhe took a step forward and once again used the big seal. This seal negates your ears. The seal negates your tongue. One after another, Bai Zhe deprived the opponent's 5 senses with negation technique and even sealed Wang Wu's King Pill. After the previous life negation failed, Bai Zhe's style became more cautious. No, cautious wasn't the right word to describe him. He was just enjoying the thrill of shutting down his opponent bit by bit. This kind of negation actually consumed a serious amount of energy for him. More than half of the 14 seals floating around him became dim, but he still enjoyed it. Using less than 1/10 of the opponent's power, he easily forced her into a desperate situation and even tortured her like a public execution. This completely showed the huge gap between the Dixian and these useless mortals of the later generation. There was no more satisfying result than this. No, if he was only satisfied because of this, it would be too unbecoming of the Dixian's identity. Although he was a little tired now, using the power of the King Pill to use the negation seal didn't just consume magic, he still decided to use the most luxurious method to draw the curtains on this battle. At the same time, the Dixian outside the arena shook their heads and sighed, feeling sorry for this result. If she didn't choose Bai Zhe but anyone else, perhaps this woman with the King Pill who was good at defense would have a different result. Her power was indeed far above the King Pill's realm. In terms of the efficiency of using power, she was also superb, completely proving that the cultivators after the end of the Age of Chaos also had their strengths. Unfortunately, choosing Dixian as her opponent was still too much. In other words, Bai Zhe actually used the immortal technique in the face of a King Pill level opponent, which was a bit too shameless. However, the result had been decided, and there was no room for dispute. Xianemo looked at the silent Wang Lu and asked, "Is that enough? Don't you want to surrender on behalf of your master? Bai Zhe really doesn't know how to be merciful, he will definitely kill." Wang Lu shrugged. "Then let him try. If he can succeed, the average moral integrity of 9 regions will rise a lot." Upon hearing this, Xianemo was stunned. He could see that Wang Lu seemed to have absolute confidence in his master. However, at this time, it was clear that Wang Wu had fallen into a desperate situation, and there was no possibility of a comeback. Although Bai Zhe had consumed a lot of energy, Wang Wu had been sealed to the point where her energy could not be consumed, unless they changed their opponent and fought Bai Zhe one after another. However, he believed that apart from Wang Wu, the Wanxian League couldn't come up with any other King Pill who could take more than 20 negation seals in a row. At the same time, Bai Zhe also firmly believed that he had won the battle, so he stopped his action a little. "Looking at the fact that you can take more than 20 negation seals from me, I'll give you a chance to surrender. I'll count to 3. As long as you surrender, I'll spare your life." Alas, many people sighed from outside the arena. This was basically a cat-and-mouse game. Surrender after counting to 3? By negating all the opponent's 5 senses, she couldn't hear what you said at all, let alone open her mouth. How could she surrender? However, the next moment, Wang Wu's voice clearly sounded in the arena. "Idiot." A long-lost swear word, like a stone breaking the calm surface of a lake, shocked everyone present. "You." Bai Zhe was taken aback and quickly pulled out a negation seal. However, at the same time, Wang Wu did not hesitate to reach out and call out a new wooden sword. The splendor of the green wood was full and bright. It was clear that the magical power attached to it was enough to rank it as a middle-rank magical treasure. Bai Zhe's negation seal suddenly could not be pressed, because even if he reluctantly implemented the negation seal, the opponent would quickly use the wooden sword as a substitute. The key question was, why could she continue to use magical power? In theory, her 5 senses and even the King Pill in her Jade Mansion had been negated. She was already a waste that was inferior to ordinary people, so how could she still open her mouth to speak and even make a new temporary magical treasure? This question also existed in the hearts of all the Dixian people present. Only Xianemo nodded in understanding. Exchange pills? In a general sense, the technique that targeted an individual or a single King Pill was ineffective against Wang Wu. Because even if the King Pill in her Jade Mansion was smashed, she could still replace it with a spare King Pill. Wang Lu didn't know how many spare pills his master had in her hand, but it shouldn't be too much. With her current attitude, she would definitely sell the extra ones. But it shouldn't be too little, because no matter how unreliable this woman was, at least she wouldn't take her own life as a joke. To deal with Bai Zhe's spare pills, she was certainly well prepared. Next, Bai Zhe launched the negation immortal technique one after another in vain, while Wang Wu used the wooden sword in her hand as a substitute. Until the magical power of the King Pill gradually declined, she would replace it with another one. At this point, Bai Zhe finally couldn't fight anymore. He looked at his opponent with an incomprehensible look. There was no doubt that from the beginning to the end he was suppressing the opponent. The use of immortal technique made his consumption only 1% of the opponent's. However, the opponent's seemingly endless King Pill made it difficult for him to sustain even 1% of the consumption. A dagger of 3 copper coins could kill a millionaire, but if this millionaire could be reborn infinitely, a dagger of 3 copper coins could buy thousands of them, which was enough to make people bankrupt. Bai Zhe was now on the verge of bankruptcy. The suppression of his cultivation base made him unable to use immortal technique freely. Although the magical power of a King Pill level cultivator was far from endless, when Bai Zhe used immortal technique, the immortal spirit energy consumed was not so easy to replenish. He had to think of another way, at the same time. In the arena, Wang Wu licked her lips, seemingly unsatisfied. "I have tasted the taste of negation, and the mystery of immortal technique is also engraved in my mind. It's really satisfying. So you can leave now, trash." While speaking, the expression of the number 1 King Pill in 9 regions became as sharp as a sword in an instant. She waved her right hand and stepped forward. A cold and dense sword appeared in the void and was held in her right hand, replacing the wooden sword. Mysterious frost sword? Outside the arena, Wang Lu was surprised to see the sword that was destroyed by him more than 20 years ago, but was reborn from the fire. He couldn't figure out why this sword fell into the hands of Wang Wu. On the field, Wang Wu pushed this broken and rebuilt flying sword to the limit. The bone-piercing chill was as cold as a knife. Then she straightened the sword and thrust it forward, and the killing intent rushed toward her face. Bai Zai immediately flipped out his negation seal, trying to write off the sword that went straight to the root of the problem. However, just as he held the golden seal in his hand, the immortal spirit energy was ready to be released. The next moment there was a muffled bang. Wang Wu's dash was blocked, and Bai Zai's golden seal cracked in his hand. The violent immortal spirit energy crushed the right hand that held the seal. Bai Zai ignored the pain and took several steps back in shock. Where did you learn the negation technique? It was not an ordinary spell that broke the negation seal just now, but an out-and-out negation immortal technique. It was the collision of the two negation immortal techniques that the negation seal, which had the qualification of an immortal treasure, was broken. However, the negation immortal technique was Bai Zai's unique skill. Even the several fallen immortals that he had killed before could not learn it, so how could she? However, Wang Wu had no interest in answering him at all. She took another step forward and thrust her sword forward. Bai Zai had no choice but to flip the negation seal again. However, this time he held two of them at the same time. One was used to negate Wang Wu's sword chi attack, and the other was used to resist the opponent's negation immortal technique. Although he didn't understand why the other party could use the negation immortal technique, as the inventor of this immortal technique, he was confident that he would never lose to anyone in his old profession. Thus, he successively launched two negation seals, and then there were two simultaneous explosions. Golden dust covered his field of vision in an instant, and his entire left arm was swallowed by the violent immortal spirit energy. If it weren't for the heart protection mirror in front of his chest to protect his torso, even his heart would have been destroyed. As a king pill cultivator, Bai Zai still had the means to repair his body. However, before he could save himself and make a comeback, a swift and fierce sword light had penetrated the golden dust and rapidly expanded in his field of vision. Then it stopped less than an inch in front of him. Because the voice from outside the arena had announced the end of the fight. We surrender, don't fight anymore. Xian Mo's figure floated in from outside the arena. Wang Wu smiled, put away her mysterious frost sword and raised her head high. The posture of a winner was not concealed at all. Defeating Dixian, who had the immortal technique, with a mere king pill stage was indeed a proud achievement. However, what really made her proud was obviously another thing. Wang Lu, the promised 10 million. Chapter 595. Using the non-phase nameless sword to bounce back the immortal technique, his master's performance really opened Wang Lu's eyes. The nameless sword was a counterattack skill that bounced back the damage it received. In theory, as long as it was within the range of its own endurance, any damage could be bounced back. However, this was only limited to the same level of attack. At the level of immortal technique, it was difficult to say whether the non-phase method could work, because the level was too high, far beyond the scope of King Pill's understanding. For the incomprehensible attack, the nameless sword couldn't fight back even if it wanted to. Even for the number one person in 9 regions, King Pill, understanding immortal technique was like a fantasy. Even though Wang Wu's aptitude and perception were already at the top level in 9 regions, she was no exception. Therefore, not to mention that Bai Zai didn't understand Wang Wu's non-phase method in advance. Even if he did, he couldn't guess that the opponent could analyze the immortal technique in the fight and use it against him. Because of this, even Wang Lu never thought of it. He thought that this battle would be a protracted bladder war. With a large number of reserve cores, Wang Wu would use her absolute advantage in strength to grind the opponent down. However, the result was completely unexpected. With an absolutely strong counterattack, Wang Wu defeated the opponent in 2 moves and won an unquestionable victory. The power of 10 million spirit stones was really formidable. Wang Wu was responsible for winning the battle inside the arena, while Wang Lu was responsible for expanding the battle outside the arena. According to the rules, please accept this proposal and study it carefully. The competition will officially begin in 3 months, and I look forward to the wonderful performance of the seniors. Wang Lu ignored the embarrassed Bai Zai after the defeat. He handed the proposal to Xian Mo and was ready to leave. Xian Mo took the thick file with a complicated look and didn't refuse. She was not a high-ranking leader in the Dixian organization, so in theory she had no right to make decisions on behalf of others. However, everyone had seen Bai Zai's defeat, so she couldn't deny it. Even though Bai Zai himself didn't admit defeat at all. It's not over yet. I can still fight. I only used 1/10 of my strength just now and I never said that I would surrender. Truth be told, Bai Zai had indeed used less than 1/10 of Wang Wu's strength in the battle just now, but that could only be attributed to his arrogance. No one forced him to restrain his power to the point where he couldn't even compare to the peak of King Pill. He was seeking his own death. Enough, Baizé. A black-clothed Dixian walked out and pressed his hand on Baizé's shoulder. Touched by the black-clothed man's palm, Baizé immediately stiffened and was unable to move. You have indeed only used less than a tenth of your strength, but you have broken 3 negation seals in a row. If you continue to fight, you will only be humiliating yourself. As a Dixian, you should at least know how to be willing to admit defeat. Don't let others shame you. After saying that to Baizé, the black-clothed man turned to his companions and said, "The cultivation methods of the later generations of cultivators are indeed eye-opening. It is unheard of for a King Pill to be able to analyze immortal techniques. But I think such a miracle is the only one for them. During this period of time, everyone has woken up from their deep sleep. Everyone has seen the real ability of the later generations of cultivators. Even if we compete according to their rules, we still have an absolute advantage." The black-clothed man's voice was very cold. Rather than encouraging morale, it was more like he was repeating lines. After saying that, he said to Wang Lu, "Let's compete according to your plan. 3 months later we will set up the venue and wait for you. I hope that after the competition, we can put aside unnecessary disputes and face the real enemy together." Wang Lu was stunned. "If you are so understanding, why aren't you the leader of the Dixian organization?" "Because I am a sinner." With that, the black-clothed man disappeared without a trace. That sentence of "I am a sinner" also attracted a lot of Dixian people's pity. Obviously there was a deep story behind it. However, what Wang Lu cared about was not the story behind it, nor was he interested in inquiring about what kind of heinous crime he had committed in the past. "I want to ask, he is not the leader, so does his words count?" Xian Mo nodded in silence. 3 months later, the Wanxian League and the Dixian would launch an earth-shattering contest in the group of immortal tombs. According to the competition plan announced by the management committee of the group of immortal tombs, the Wanxian League would organize an elite team of more than 2,000 people, from Taoist Master King Pill to Supremes of Unity Stage, from the leader of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League to the future stars of the middle-rank sections. They would fight against the Dixian team, which currently had an unknown number of people. The competition was divided into 2 categories, civil and martial, with each having half of the weight. It was just that, the subject of the civil competition was very detailed. There were more than 1,000 items, including zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. The sub-items were divided into many sub-items according to age, stage, and so on, which was dazzling. The martial competition was less, but the weight of each item was higher. Especially the highly anticipated individual competition, which accounted for 1/10 of the total score of the entire competition. In the end, the spoils would be distributed according to the score of the 2 sides, including the composition of the management in the future war, the ownership of the ancient secret treasures in the group of immortal tombs, and so on. If one side could win all the competitions in an absolutely crushing manner, the result would naturally be the winner takes all. However, according to common sense, the most likely result would be a mixed score, which meant that the 2 sides would divide the spoils equally, and the management would also be a mix of both sides. This result was actually the most ideal. Democratic decision-making might lack efficiency, but it was better than direct confrontation between the 2 sides. Of course, that being said, who dared not to do their best in the competition? For the Wanxian League, every victory must be won with all their might. The opponent was the Dixian team. Even if they suppressed their stage and limited their performance, they were still quasi-immortal level. Except for Wang Wu, that kind of freak, no one dared to guarantee their victory. If they were careless and the Dixian team won most of the competition, it was very likely that they would face the result of losing both sides. Therefore, this elite team of 2,000 people must be very cautious. The organization and gathering alone had already consumed a lot of time and manpower. The previous high-level meetings only determined the basic framework for the organization and operation of the team. For example, the elite team would be recommended by each sect, and different rank sects would have different number of recommendation places. Naturally, the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League had the most number of recommendation places. And this alone was enough to ensure that they could occupy the greatest benefit in the competition. However, in addition to the 5 uniques, the interests of other sects could not be ignored, not to mention that there were indeed some small sects that had quite a skill. Therefore, how to distribute the quota evenly and at the same time, take into account the overall fighting strength of the team, was a big problem. For this reason, the several standing committee members of the excavation management were so busy that they split their primordial spirits. At the same time, Supreme He Tu and the other high-level members of the Wanxian League also visited the big sects from time to time, threatening and enticing them to cooperate fully. The list of 2,000 people took a month before it was finally decided. In the following 2 months, the Wuxia League did not hesitate to transfer resources to strengthen these 2,000 people, especially for the King Pill and Nascent Soul levels. No matter how high their stage was, it would be too difficult to strengthen them in a short period of time. In addition, it was relatively easier to improve in a short period of time. Especially for some unpopular events, it was full of the designer's bad taste. No normal person would waste time to learn those skills, and any person with a normal aptitude would be able to improve by leaps and bounds in a few months through intensive training. But for the Dixian team, they probably did not have that much time to waste. The total number of people in the Dixian team was no more than 100 at most. To cope with the thousands of events in the proposal, they would certainly be stretched, and it was impossible for them to have time to take care of these unpopular events. And although the individual points of these unpopular events were not much, the total points could not be underestimated. If the Wuxia League could grasp these points with a 90% certainty, it would be equivalent to the Wuxia League occupying a considerable advantage before the start of the competition. In this regard, they could only sigh at the genius of the designer of the proposal, which could not be thought of by ordinary people. Oh? Those junior cultivators sure know how to play petty tricks. In the group of immortal tombs, a slender cultivator looked at the proposal in his hand and uttered a cold laugh. Want to compete in knowledge? That's a good calculation. Unfortunately, when I rushed into the immortal world, I was seriously injured but didn't die, and now I wake up from my sleep. With me here, you guys can forget about winning in knowledge. The books I have read are more than the rice you guys have eaten. Bai Zhe first smiled, but then habitually retorted, don't be careless. Although your knowledge is indeed unparalleled in the world, but, there's no but. Bai Zhe, are you questioning my strength? Of course not, I don't need to question my Dixian companions who believe in the way of knowledge. You're right, this time they brought about their own destruction and kicked the iron plate. At the same time, on the other side. Listen, our group of people have poor root bone and have no hope to move forward in the path of immortal cultivation. However, now the Wuxia League has placed high hopes on us, and we enjoy the luxurious treatment of the sect's genius elites. Therefore, in the next few months, even if we have to risk our lives, we must give full play to our only skill, complete the task and get valuable points for the Wuxia League. In a quiet room made of ice crystals, 20 young cultivators from various sects nervously looked at the old man in front of them. Their hearts were all restless. Poor root bone and hopeless cultivation. What the old man said was right. They were indeed all waste cultivators from various sects, and they indeed only had one skill. However, the old man himself was the elder of 10,000 Arts sect, and his status was highly respected. The elder no longer said anything. He just waved his hand and placed a thick book on the table in front of each of them. The young cultivators flipped open the book and saw a dazzling variety of questions. Regarding the King Pill level cultivator, the following statements were incorrect. A. If the King Pill level cultivator is dissatisfied with the quality of the King Pill, they can recultivate by breaking the pill. B. A King Pill can fuse a variety of paths. C. To achieve the King Pill, one must pass the King Pill tribulation. D. To advance from Shudan to King Pill, the total amount of magical power increases at least 3 times. Suppose there are the following 3 kinds of swordsmanship, which are autumn wind, summer rain, and winter cold. The various attributes and comparison table are. Try to construct a set of core method that can perfectly accommodate the 3 sets of swordsmanship. Try to use autumn forest grass, ambergris, and red glow pearl to refine the 3 flavors pill without the help of tools and special methods. In addition to the questions related to cultivation, there were also questions about zither, chess, calligraphy, and even daily necessities. The types of questions were all-encompassing, and the difficulty was also different. After these general knowledge questions, there were a large number of graph rule questions, numerical reasoning questions, and even astronomical calculation questions that made people dizzy. Elder, what are these? These are the challenges that we will face in 2 months. The questions will be given by the Heavenly Sphere Inquiry. The young people below were suddenly surprised. Heavenly Sphere Inquiry? Isn't that a supreme grimoire that is said to have endless questions? Yes, it's also one of the treasures of 10,000 Arts sect. At that time, the supreme sect leader will personally bring out the book, which will be controlled by him and the representative of Dixian. Under the prescribed mode, random questions will be issued to ensure fairness. However, the difficulty of the questions will be amazing. A young cultivator asked, is our task to get a higher score than Dixian in this competition? That's right, but the ancient Earth immortals are all knowledgeable people. If we want to surpass the opponent in this kind of knowledge, even if we group a group of bookworms who only know how to read books together, it may not be enough. Therefore, fellow Taoist Wang Lu of the excavation management invented this set of exercises system, which can maximize the limit of pure knowledge, making the situation more favorable to our side. However, if we want to win, we still need to pay a great effort. From today on, each of us has to do 120 sets of exercises every day to adapt to this written test environment and increase the odds of winning. 120 sets. Yes, it's absolutely impossible for mortals, but those present here are at least cultivators who have embarked on the road of immortal cultivation. Such a small thing shouldn't be impossible, right? The young people looked at each other in dismay, and then lowered their heads to look at the test paper. The more they looked, the paler their faces became. 120 sets of exercises a day, even if they didn't sleep or rest, it meant that they had to do 10 sets in an hour. However, a set of exercises had more than 20 pages. If it was an ordinary person, just reading it once would take them half an hour, not to mention solving the exercises one by one. And even if they, this group of bookworms, were known for their keen primordial spirit and tenacious mind, to finish 10 sets in an hour, they would have to risk their lives to do it. Elder, I think. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by 10,000 Arts Sect Elder. He clapped his hands and a row of brackets appeared in front of everyone. On top of the brackets hung a glittering and translucent porcelain bottle. The mouth of the bottle was facing downwards, with a tube and a needle hanging down. This is the refreshing soup to maintain the high-speed operation of primordial spirit. It will be directly injected into your body. During the time of doing exercises, there is an unlimited supply of refreshing soup, so you don't have to worry about exhaustion. The young people's complexion began to turn pale, and cold sweat continued to pour down. Using refreshing soup to refresh the mind was indeed feasible, but the problem was, if they relied on drugs for a long time, they would be crippled. However, the elders' torture wasn't over yet. Every day there are 120 sets of exercises, and the correct rate of each set must be more than 50%. If you can't reach this number, you will be given extra seasoning in the refreshing soup. Extra seasoning? Everyone was puzzled. If punishment was imposed on those who couldn't complete the exercises, it was easy to understand, but whether it was physical or mental pain, it would only reduce the efficiency of doing exercises. Wouldn't that make things worse? Humph, I know what you're thinking. Rest assured, I won't let you feel pain and be distracted. It's just that if you can't complete the quota, there will be an extra autumn medicine in the refreshing soup. After the injection, the length of the male's penis will decrease, and the size of the female's breast will decrease. The change is irreversible. Dead silence. The elder coldly smiled a few times. Do you understand? In unison they roared, understood. I guarantee to complete the quota. Chapter 596. At the same time that the group was struggling for the length of their whip and the size of their chest, under the jurisdiction of the Wuxia League, there were hundreds and thousands of similar groups that were doing the same. Hurry up! Hurry up! Didn't you guys eat? High up in the clear sky, a group of cultivators were doing their best to chase after a petite figure in front of them. The one flying at the front was a young girl wearing a tight purple dress. Her pretty ponytail was blowing against the high winds, but it gently stuck to the young girl's back as if she couldn't feel the wind pressure at all. As the young girl flew forward, she looked behind her from time to time and urged them to catch up with dissatisfaction. Too slow. What the hell are you guys doing? Behind her, a group of cultivators complained, Senior Sister Lu Guang, you're too fast. That speed of yours isn't at the King Pill level at all. Even if you go to the Nascent Soul group, it's still more than enough. How can we possibly keep up? You guys are simply frogs at the bottom of a well. The young girl named Lu Guang was so angry that she stomped her feet in midair. As her delicate feet vibrated, the sound of the air exploding echoed for dozens of miles. With this speed of mine, not to mention the Nascent Soul group, even in the King Pill group, it's not considered the best. If it wasn't for the team competition, I wouldn't even have the qualifications to participate. Listen carefully, the team competition is the only chance for us small and medium-sized sects to stand out. Whether our Imperial Light Cave can go one step further in the Wuxia League, this is the key opportunity. But if you guys have this kind of attitude, the Imperial Light Cave will never be able to be ranked as a high-grade sect. The young girl spoke with an imposing manner, but the fellow disciples following behind her obviously had other ideas. The advancement of the Imperial Light Cave isn't something that we, the enlightened King Pill, who have just left the disciple generation, can control, right? There are master and martial uncles working hard in the nascent soul group. Ignorant. Liu Guang angrily halted his flight. He turned around and said to his fellow disciples, "The Yuanying group is full of monsters. Our Liuguang cave is not qualified to stand in the Yuanying group. Master and martial uncles are indeed formidable, but let alone compared to those several abnormal Yuanying stage cultivators of Spirit Sword Mountain. Even the common top-rank sects such as Flowing Cloud School also have Taoist masters of Yuanying stage with astonishing speed. Thus, the advantage of Flowing Light Cave is very limited. Our core method only has the greatest advantage in the King Pill realm. Therefore, the sect has always placed high hopes on us. You guys must not be as lazy as you were just now. Got it? We'll work hard for the next 2 months. However, senior sister Lu Guang, even if we work hard seriously, what kind of result do you think we can obtain in the end? Regardless of the result, as long as we fight with all our might, the Wanxian League will definitely take note of it." There were still many small and medium-sized sects like the Imperial Light Cave. With a particular skill, they tried every possible way to find their place in this grand competition. Even if they couldn't achieve an impressive result, it was also a good thing to be able to show off their sect's elegant demeanor in the eyes of the public. The competition plan designed by Wang Lu was divided into too many events. Therefore, many unknown sects also had the opportunity to appear on the stage. However, compared to these numerous small and medium-sized sects, the ones who really had to bear the heavy responsibility in the competition were the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League and those top-ranked sections. At the same time, compared to those small and medium-sized sects, the training intensity of the top-ranked sects was even more astonishing. In the scorching lava cave, the boiling air contained explosive energy, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was unusually violent, and also unusually rich. This was a unique training room specially designed for the destroyer. In it, when a cultivator cast an offensive spell, the power could be increased by a bit. On the contrary, defense would be half the result with twice the effort. Just the constantly blowing hot wind in this place could disintegrate some careless and solid defense. However, in such a harsh environment, there was a female cultivator who steadily propped up her own defensive circle. No matter how the surrounding 7 cultivators launched their violent attacks, which directly bombarded this solid lava cave with sand and stones, the earth quaked and the mountains shook, she still stood firm. "Come on guys, use a bit more strength. It's rare for the Royal Soldier sect to open this immortal abode for us to use, so we have to cherish this opportunity." As soon as her voice fell, a gray sword chi, under the cover of the sand and dust, stabbed straight toward her back. It was fast and ruthless, tricky and difficult to guard against. However, the woman didn't even look at it. She didn't even lift the cold spirit sword in her hand. Relying solely on her magical power to protect her body, she dissolved the incoming sword chi into nothingness. Then she let out a sarcastic sigh. "Wang Lu, can you do it? How can you be so weak at such a young age? Master doesn't remember teaching you to be so weak and incompetent." Amidst the sand and dust, Wang Lu cursed, "You slut, you're really a pretentious prick. In addition to teaching me this tortoise-shell technique, what else did you teach me? In terms of attack, I learned it all by myself, okay? Moreover, you're already so old, why are you here to join in the fun with us, these young fresh meat? We're all different in seniority, yet you still have the nerve to fight with us? Although we're all at the King Pill level, don't you, an old King Pill girl, feel ashamed? What your traitorous disciple's kung fu is not that good, but your tongue is really ruthless. Now, Qianghua, attack her left ankle." Amidst the sand and dust, Wang Lu's voice suddenly became loud, and at the same time, a red sword wave rolled in front of Wang Wu. Facing this fierce sword wave, Wang Wu's complexion changed. "Kill immortal sword. Little Qianghua, do you hate me so much? You even have to use this kind of killer move?" Qianghua was silent and just urged the sword wave to move forward. If she wanted to win, this was the only chance. The 7 carefully selected King Pill cultivators almost represented the strongest power of the Wanxian League in the King Pill level. However, in front of the old King Pill girl, they were as powerless as a child. Wang Lu's primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi had far surpassed the King Pill level attack, and with the addition of the quasi-immortal sword Rouge Tears, ordinary Yuanying cultivators could not resist it head-on. However, when it hit the opponent's non-phase sword defense, it could not even set off a few ripples. And among the 7 people, Wang Lu was already in the forefront in terms of pure attack power. His understanding of non-phase sword was also far above the others. If even he could not break through Wang Wu's sword defense, then even if the others tried their best, it would still be in vain. Except for Qianghua. In terms of cultivation base, Qianghua was not stronger than Wang Lu. In the immortal dreamland, Wang Lu had a fortuitous encounter and soared to the peak of King Pill, which was an experience that could only be encountered but not sought. Although Qianghua herself also had a fortuitous encounter, at present she had only reached the peak of King Pill, which also had the problem of unstable foundation. However, the kill immortal sword in her hand was irreplaceable. It was a stable immortal treasure. Coupled with years of sacrificial refining, the human sword unity, and the synchronization rate was much higher than that of Wang Lu and Rouge Tears. Therefore, the power of the kill immortal sword was several times higher than that of the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword Qi. If they had any means to break the unbreakable golden body of the old King Pill, it was only Qianghua's kill immortal sword. However, after witnessing the invincible sword defense of Wang Wu, Qianghua did not have much confidence that she could break it in one fell swoop. Therefore, it was necessary for the first few people to pave the way for Wang Lu to lock the weakness, and finally Qianghua to break the enemy in one fell swoop. Left ankle. This was the only place where Wang Wu could barely be called a flaw after experiencing a fierce battle. Previously, when she fought against the heaven in the immortal dreamland, she did not hesitate to break her golden core to fight against Bai Zhe. Although it seemed like nothing had happened, after all, she was still injured. The injury on her left ankle had not healed yet, so when she fully supported the non-phase sword defense, it was a bit inconvenient. Qianghua's kill immortal sword could once sweep a small world. At this time, her cultivation base had gone a step further, and she could concentrate the power of the kill immortal sword even more, focusing on one point. If she could not break the non-phase sword defense, then there was really no other way. After no one knows how long, the red light in the lava cave finally extinguished. Qianghua wearily put the kill immortal sword back into her jade mansion. Her feet softened and she almost staggered to the ground. That sword strike, she really went all out. However, the golden sword defense in front of her still stood despairingly. Even after bearing the full blow of the kill immortal sword aimed at the weak point, Wang Wu was still able to hold on. I say, you're clearly cheating, right? Did you really use 30% of your power? Wang Lu said, and then came out from the dust cover of the lava cave. At this point, there was no chance of winning in a head-on fight. Originally, it was agreed that if Wang Wu used 30% of her power, as long as the 7 of them could break the sword defense, they would pass. However, in the face of the kill immortal sword, Wang Wu obviously showed her real skill, which was comparable to peak deity stage or even higher. What could a few peak king pill cultivators do? Wang Wu's face was also a bit awkward. Just now, Qianghua's shocking kill immortal sword was simply against the heaven. Let alone 30% of her power, even if she used 50% of her power, she might not be able to withstand it. Therefore, she had to temporarily increase the upper limit of her power output. However, before entering the cave, she still confidently boasted to the other sect's elders in the mysterious sky mansion, "These little bastards, with 30% of my power, I can block them for a year. I have defeated Dixian, so there is no doubt about my strength." When the Wanxian League chose me, they were hesitant about the 10 million endorsement fee, but now it seems that they have made a profit. Therefore, if you choose me as your product spokesperson, even if the endorsement fee is 5 million a year, it will still be a profit. However, in just half a day her body was broken by a few little bastards. No, her power was broken. This old female King Pill's face was completely lost. What a joke, I just used 20% of my power. Wang Lu sneered, "If you have the ability, then show me the remaining 80% of your power." Wang Wu also sneered, "I just used 2 King Pill cultivators, guess how many reserve pills I have on hand." What the F***ck? Wang Wu also threw caution to the wind, "Why not? In short, you are still far from passing the test. Continue to work hard for me." However, after half a day of besieging, Qianghua and the others were already exhausted. Even if Taoist King Pill's spiritual power was endless, she still couldn't withstand their crazy bombardment. Therefore, everyone's eyes focused on Wang Lu. Among the 7 people, only Wang Lu and Qianghua were young cultivators. The other King Pill cultivators had cultivated for more than 50 years, and their overall strength was only a little bit stronger than these 2, but at this time they all placed their hopes on Wang Lu. Wang Lu was the one who everyone expected, but looking at his master who had a stable sword defense in front of him, he could only sigh, "Sure enough, there are only tired cows and no fields that are damaged. We really don't have the strength to fight anymore." Wang Wu smiled, "So, are you going to admit defeat?" Wang Lu said, "Admit defeat? How can we admit defeat without using our ultimate move? It's true that we don't have the strength to fight a protracted battle, but it's still possible for us to use our ultimate move." Wang Wu immediately raised her guard. Although the cultivation base of the kid in front of her was less than 1/10 of hers, his real body was, after all, the legendary Big Brother. Most of her current achievements came from the legacy left by him, so she had to be even more vigilant against him. Who knew what kind of trump card he would use? Wang Lu reached into his arms, and in the blink of an eye, 3 mysterious sky crystals were clamped between his fingertips. Wang Wu's eyes suddenly changed. What do you mean? Let us pass and these 3 mysterious sky crystals are yours. Hey, there's no reason for you to miss out on such easy money, right? Wang Wu looked like she was struggling. Wang Lu took advantage of the victory and continued to attack. Just now, Qionghua's sword swept away all the detection arrays in the cave. If you don't say anything, no one will know what happened. So, before he could finish his words, Wang Lu's eyes blurred, and the mysterious sky crystals in his hand had been taken away. So, you, Taoist Master King Pill, are indeed the hope of the Wanxian League. Congratulations to all of you for passing the test. After walking out of the lava cave, the expressions of Qionghua and the others were still quite complicated. It was not glorious to pass the test in this way, but in the face of a peak deity stage defense, it was impossible to pass the test. And the price of 3 mysterious sky crystals was really not cheap. Wang Lu was indeed worthy to be known as the richest young disciple. He actually took out 3 million spirit stones without hesitation. Moreover, he was generous and forthright, paying for everyone, which was very different from the rumors of Spirit Sword Mountain's non-phase peak being stingy, insidious and despicable. While they were secretly admiring the generosity of this lead disciple of Spirit Sword Mountain, Wang Lu, who was walking in front, suddenly turned around. By the way, just now those 3 mysterious sky crystals, you should reimburse me. What? Wang Lu righteously said, don't tell me you want me to treat you? The 3 million spirit stones will be divided among the 6 of you, so each of you only needs 500,000. Everyone here is from a famous sect, so you don't need to be short of money, right? Taking back his words, there were really no good people on Spirit Sword Mountain's non-phase peak. Chapter 597. In order to cope with the battle with Dixian 2 months later, the Wanxian League set up training bases in many places, among which the lava cave of Royal Soldier Sect was one of them. King Pil Yuanying Deity. A total of 3 groups of cultivators would participate in this special training to strengthen their attack ability in various ways. Not long ago, 7 King Pil members besieged Wang Wu, which was the special training of the King Pil group. Starting from breaking through 30% of Wang Wu's non-phase sword defense, they had to increase their attack power by more than 50% on average while maintaining the same level before the match. The special training plan was very strict. Every day there was a corresponding task. If they couldn't complete it, there would be no rest and no supplies. However, in the King Pil group, the progress of cultivation base was often measured in years. To improve by 50% in just 2 months, the difficulty could be imagined. In fact, they were quite lucky to pass this test on the first day. If there was no special method, this group of people would not have a chance to rest until they fainted in the lava cave. Fortunately, in this group of people, there was a smart person who was good at passing the test. Now, this smart person was laughing in the bedroom of the training base. Haha, making money while leveling, this kind of good thing is rare to see in many years. Outside the lava cave, after the first day of training, the non-phase master and disciple began to divide the spoils. According to the previous agreement, during the training I will take 30% of all the profits, so this mysterious sky crystal should belong to me. Wang Lu pointed at one of the 3 crystals in his master's hand. Wang Wu somewhat reluctantly said, Tiske, the strength is basically mine, but you can take 30% of the profit just by moving your mouth. This money is too easy to earn. Damn, you have a low IQ and can only use your stupid strength? If you want to make money without going through a lot of trouble and tiredness, you might as well sell your body. Wang Wu just lamented, with age I can't sell it anymore. That's true, so do you want to consider selling it to me at a wholesale price? We have a criminal record. No, we have a predestined relationship. Sure. As Wang Wu spoke, she chuckled and lightly touched Wang Lu's cheek with her lips. Then, while Wang Lu was still in shock, she snatched the mysterious sky crystal back from his hand. *CK, this is robbery. Wang Lu was shocked and touched his cheek in disbelief. A kiss cost 1 million spirit stones? Is this the wholesale price or the price of arsenic? Have some shame, my sister. Wang Wu said affectionately, what's precious is not the relationship, but the sincerity. Sorry, your mind is too dirty. I don't want it. Wang Lu said as he tried to take back the mysterious sky crystal. Sorry, we don't accept returns or exchanges. After arguing for a while, Wang Lu finally gave up trying to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. He was just curious. Seriously, why do you need so much money? Since we've known each other for a lifetime, I'm afraid you've spent hundreds of millions of spirit stones. Even if you *ck a handsome guy every day, you don't need that much money, right? Wang Wu put away the mysterious sky crystal and sweetly smiled. Women, there are always many places where they need to spend money. Moreover, how do you think I got those pills? With my mixed spirit root, even if I inherit your legacy, it's impossible for me to cultivate many king pill in more than 100 years by myself. Sure enough. Like I said, you've spent so much money but you can't even buy yourself a decent outfit. No matter what, it's not justifiable. Wang Lu nodded. But you need to take it easy. My funds are limited. Even if Wisdom Sect enters the profitable period, it's still just a grassroots sect, so it can't afford your bottomless consumption. Li Nana has complained to me more than once about the withdrawal of funds. Upon hearing this, Wang Wu smiled. I know. Later on, I won't ask for more from you. Moreover, to be honest, do you think you're my big financial backer? In fact, it's just pocket money. Wang Lu really wanted to hit someone. He had seen shameless people but never one as shameless as her. She spent hundreds of millions of spirit stones in the past few decades, and then she told him that was just pocket money? However, before Wang Lu could make his move, there was a knock on the door. Excuse me, is fellow Taoist Wang Lu here? Since there was an uninvited guest who came to disturb them, the master and disciple pair no longer joked around. Wang Wu nodded and her figure disappeared, while Wang Lu got out of bed to open the door. When he opened the door, he saw a little baldy with a sunny smile on his face. Wang Lu couldn't help but find it funny. This Zen cultivator's business was really spread all over the world. He actually begged for alms in his own sect. He didn't know how those gatekeepers in the Wuxia League did their jobs. He was an important member of the excavation management, but he was actually disturbed by door-to-door salesmen at the training base. Just as he was thinking about whether he should throw the leftovers in the room to this baldy, the baldy smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Wang Lu, I've been looking for you for a long time. I'm Luo Xiao from the Huayan sect. I've cultivated for 81 years and am at the peak of the King Pill. I'm here to challenge you. Wang Lu frowned. He really couldn't remember the name of Huayan sect's Luo Xiao. He didn't even have a deep impression of the Huayan sect. It seemed to be an unknown middle-level Zen sect. Speaking of which, among the middle-level sects, if one could reach the peak of the King Pill in 80 years, he would be considered as a genius that only appeared once in 100 years. Lingjian School was one of the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League. In their school, there were a lot of people who couldn't reach the King Pill stage even after 50 years of cultivation. However, this Luo Xiao actually dared to challenge him. His courage was really commendable. Although his peak of the King Pill stage was still somewhat lacking in terms of overall strength, there weren't many people in the entire 9 regions who were stronger than him. After all, for an ordinary cultivator, the limit of the King Pill stage was right there. No matter how much effort they put in, they were limited by their cultivation method, spirit root grade, and the power of their magical treasure. Thus, their overall strength could not be compared to Wang Lu. Seeing the displeasure on Wang Lu's face, Luo Xiao explained, I'm a newcomer who just joined the one-on-one group. In the morning I've just fought with several other people in the group and learned a lot. Then I heard that fellow Taoist Wang Lu is recognized as one of the top 3 in the one-on-one group of King Pill stage cultivators. Therefore I came here to ask for advice. Please forgive me. Hearing this, Wang Lu was even more surprised. You're in the one-on-one group? The one-on-one group, as the name implied, was the group of King Pill stage cultivators who would fight with Dixian 2 months later. The requirements of this group were the harshest. It was a group of the most capable King Pill cultivators in the entire 9 regions. Even among the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, only Wang Lu and Qianghua were selected. Because Zhou Mumu, Zhan Zai, and the others had not reached the peak of King Pill stage, they could only participate in some of the sub-events. And in this group, Wang Lu was at most one of the top 3. In addition to Wang Wu, who was firmly in the first place, Xianghua, Zhu Shiyao, and several other veteran King Pill stage cultivators were all tyrannical and peerless. If Wang Lu encountered any of them, he would not have a 100% chance of winning. Being firmly in the top 3 was more or less because of his reputation. However, this little baldy in front of him was able to have a place in the King Pill group, which was full of strong people. Moreover, he even dared to come to his door and challenge him. It seemed like he was not an easy person to deal with, which was worth paying attention to. In addition to being an elite King Pill cultivator, Wang Lu also had the identity of the planner and organizer of the whole competition. He was the one who formulated the plan of the competition, so he had to personally participate in the overall work. In addition to Supreme He too and a few other people in the excavation management, his words had a lot of weight. Therefore, he had to understand these unexpected changes in time in order to make a decision. Okay, I just finished my meal, I'll accompany you to play. The last thing that Royal Soldier Sect lacked was the practice field. Outside the lava cave, there were 3 luxurious venues that could accommodate the fight of peak deity stage cultivators. Wang Lu randomly chose one and found that there was a sea of people around him after he went on stage. In addition to the few people in the one-on-one group, all the people in this special training had come to watch. At the same time, a large group of enthusiastic spectators came down from Royal Soldier Sect and surrounded the venue. Seeing this scene, Wang Lu could not help but exclaim. It seems that these guys still don't have enough training. A mere farce has attracted so many idlers. It seems that it's necessary to give them more responsibility in time and popularize the training method of the one-on-one group. Wait a minute, it stands to reason that outsiders are not allowed to go in and out of this place. What are the gatekeepers doing? As a result, when Wang Lu turned around, he saw the culprit who caused all this. For only 300 spirit stones, you can watch the fight of the number 1 legend in 9 regions, King Pill. Want to know the secret of Wang Lu's legend? Want to crack the legendary invincible sword, non-phase sword? As long as you spend 300 spirit stones to buy the admission ticket, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That white figure, even in the crowded crowd, was particularly eye-catching. It made people want to beat her up. Haha, fellow Taoist, Wang Lu has a very interesting master, it's really enviable. Our Flower Stern School's elders are so old-fashioned that I haven't seen them laugh even once in a year. This is simply a bitter hatred. Luo Xiao laughed and carelessly ridiculed his own elders. Wang Lu snorted. Enough with the idle talk, I'm not that familiar with you. Luo Xiao shrugged his shoulders and then jumped onto the training field and took a stance in the middle of the field. Previously, Wang Lu had never fought against the Baldies of Flower Stern School. He only learned about the sect's methods from the books. Generally speaking, this was a lackluster sect. From the management of the sect to its inheritance, it had the characteristics of an ordinary middle-rank sect. For those at the bottom of the immortal cultivation world, this was a bright and dazzling sect. But for those who stood at the top, it was really nothing to look at. However, Wang Lu's intuition told him that this Baldi was not that simple. This was not surprising. In recent decades, rare geniuses emerged one after another in the 9 regions, and their value was greatly reduced. Wang Lu and Xianghua were undoubtedly the best among them. However, there were also a large number of talents that flowed into the small and medium-sized sects, and after a fortuitous encounter, they were rapidly strengthened. Although this little Baldi came from Flower Stern School, it was not impossible for him to obtain the ancient inheritance through a fortuitous encounter and have a strength far beyond his peers. Fellow Taoist Wang Lu, please be lenient. Wang Lu nodded his head. Rest assured, the first time will be gentle. As soon as his voice fell, the pink dagger in his hand shone with a blood-like crimson color, and the primal chaos sword chi slashed forward with an indomitable momentum. As soon as he made his move, it was a killing move. Chapter 598. Boom. On the martial arts field, the chaotic sword chi exploded. The sword chi catalyzed by the immortal sword Rouge Tears had the terrifying power to destroy a nascent soul Taoist master. The whole martial arts field shook and the mountains shook. The continuous mountain range that was used as the setting broke in the middle. The mountain collapsed to both sides, stirring up a huge amount of sand and dust. For the many experienced and knowledgeable elite cultivators present, they would not be frightened by such a scene. But no one expected that Wang Lu would be so unyielding at the beginning. This was a genuine sword that could split mountains and split stones. As an appetizer for a one-on-one fight, it was a bit too sumptuous. Everyone present asked themselves. Almost no one below the nascent soul stage dared to say that they could take on that sword. He was indeed worthy of the title of legendary Golden Core. Although Wang Lu became famous more because of his wisdom than his martial strength was indeed worthy of his reputation. Only Wang Lu himself frowned slightly after the sword attack. He was not satisfied with the result of this sword attack. The landslide looked gorgeous and dazzling, but for a sword cultivator of his realm, it could only mean that most of the energy was wasted on the destruction of the environment, and the real target was missed. That little Baldi really had some skills. To be able to dodge the lightning-fast chaotic sword chi, it would be considered good if 1 in 100 king pills could do it. On the other side, Luo Xiao also had a lingering fear. The black-clothed bald man struggled to stand on the collapsed mountain peak and then asked loudly, "Wang Lu, fellow cultivator. What happened to being lenient? Didn't you say that you would be gentle the first time?" Wang Lu smiled and said, "Yes, if you can't dodge you won't feel any pain. You will be turned into ashes in an instant. Isn't that gentle enough?" Luo Zhao's body trembled. This gentleness I still have to politely decline." Before his voice died away, his figure flew out like lightning. The next moment, there was a rouge-colored sword light piercing the sky from below where he stood. "You're quite good at dodging." On the other side, Wang Lu was a little dissatisfied and put away the sword art in his left hand. This was the first time his self-created primal chaos sky-stealing sword was used to fight, but it failed. Different from the primal chaos sky-stealing sword, which could penetrate everything head-on, the primal chaos sky-stealing sword relied more on the slender and delicate characteristics of rouge tears to infinitely compress the sharp sword chi and pierce the opponent silently. The absolutely powerful penetrating power and undetectable concealment made this sword the most powerful sneak attack weapon in Wang Lu's hands. Wang Lu originally intended to use this trick on his big sister Zhu Shiyao to see if her stellar divine eyes could see through the disguise of the immortal sword. In the end, it seemed that there was no need to find eldest senior sister to humiliate herself. She couldn't even fool this baldy, so how could she fool the stellar divine eyes? After all, the primal chaos heaven-stealing sword's completion rate was only 30%. At this stage he couldn't expect too much from it. In any case, Luo Zhao's performance had made Wang Lu even more vigilant. Perhaps he was overthinking things, or perhaps he was naturally discriminating against skinheads, but Wang Lu really didn't like this sunny Luo Zhao. Taoist Wang Lu's sword is so powerful. It's silent and powerful. I was almost penetrated. In midair, Luo Zhao's black robe was completely unfolded. Two pitch-black wings were on either side of his body, slowly flapping, casting a large shadow on the ground and supporting him to maintain his figure in the landslide. His shiny forehead was full of sweat and glistened under the sun. The next moment, an unprecedentedly strong light bloomed from the top of his head. It was several times more dazzling than the scorching sun above his head. The light was enough to blind people in an instant. Wang Lu happened to be looking up at his opponent at this time. He couldn't open his eyes when the strong light pierced him. And this strong light had a demonic nature, which resonated with his five senses, including hearing, taste, smell. All of them lost their sharpness. However, Wang Lu remained calm. Holding rouge tears in his right hand, his non-phase sword defense expanded at an astonishing speed. His left hand pressed on his chest and pulled out his original magical ability. Thousands of broken swords set off a storm around him, and each sword strike was like a full blow from a Taoist master of King Pill. The heavy rain only lasted for a moment before it subsided. However, at this time the training field was in a mess. The 1,000-meter-deep pit almost ran through the training field, making it on the verge of collapse. Before going on stage, the manager of the training field set the level of the field to the highest level of King Pill. In theory, it could accommodate dozens of peak King Pill cultivators. Unexpectedly, not long after the fight began, the field was already on the verge of collapse. Is that guy really at the peak of King Pill? The onlookers outside the field had their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Wang Lu's violent output just now had reached the point of challenging common sense. Let alone the King Pill cultivators, even those peak Yuaning stage cultivators in the one-on-one group might not be able to do it. The burst of magical power in a short period of time was enough to drain 10 peak King Pill cultivators. Although the way it was used was too rough, no one would be willing to taste it if they were in each other's shoes. Moreover, it was said that at this time Wang Lu had not reached the peak of his King Pill period. Many of his cultivation methods had not kept up. Strictly speaking, his foundation was not solid. Are the people in Lingjian school all monsters? How could he be so powerful when he's only at the peak of King Pill? What kind of cultivation method is he cultivating? What kind of cultivation method in the world can make someone so abnormal in the King Pill period? It has nothing to do with his cultivation method. Although non-phase method is indeed one of the top cultivation methods in the world, the ability to engulf the violent surrounding spiritual energy is the privilege of the void spirit root. After this guy reached Jindan stage, he can finally bring out the power of this legendary spirit root. In the crowd, a young man with golden hair stared intently at Wang Lu on the training field. Although he looked calm, his hands sometimes clenched and sometimes relaxed, which showed the great waves in his heart. The surrounding people quickly recognized him. He was the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect, Zhan Zai. Recently, his cultivation base had advanced by leaps and bounds. His long golden hair, which was catalyzed by the power of thunder, had become one of his signature features. However, although Zhang Zai's cultivation base was fast, he couldn't be compared to Wang Lu, who could advance several times in one night. At present, his cultivation base was only at the high-level King Pill stage, so he couldn't enter the one-on-one group. However, Zhang Zai was one of the best in the racing group. His Thunder Body and Thunder Immortal technique, with the assistance of the 10,000 motionless Immortal Heart, were comparable to the flying speed of a Yuanying stage cultivator, which made countless cultivators of the same generation feel powerless. However, at this moment, after witnessing the performance of Wang Lu, presumably, his heart could no longer calm down. Once upon a time, their 10,000 Arts Sect team visited Spirit Sword Mountain. How high-spirited they were. At that time, among the disciples of Spirit Sword Mountain, except for Zhu Shiyao who was in closed-door training, only Lu Li could fight against him. As a successor disciple, Wang Lu was still a stage lower than him, and their strength was almost not on the same line. However, in just a dozen years, things have changed. Wang Lu is indeed formidable, making people feel ashamed of their inferiority. Zhang Zai was actually indifferent to the fact that Wang Lu had caught up from behind. However, a petite but indifferent girl beside him suddenly frowned. "Senior brother Zai, you're the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts Sect. How could you say that you feel ashamed of your inferiority so lightly?" Upon hearing the girl's words, Zhang Zai was stunned and asked, "Do you want me to kneel and lick his boots?" "That's not good. Although my strength is not as good as his, I'm still the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts Sect." The girl directly stepped on his foot, which made a crisp sound. "Junior sister, why did you step on my foot? You're the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts Sect. Your every word and action represents the face of the 10,000 Arts Sect. How could you easily admit defeat? Not to mention now, under the watchful eyes of the public, you can't back down. After a while, when Wang Lu finishes his fight, you can go up." "That's not good, right? I see that fellow Taoist Luo Xiao has been beaten black and blue. After this fight, I'm afraid he'll be bedridden for several days, unable to move. If I go up and hit him while he's down, wouldn't that be the act of a villain? I want you to challenge Wang Lu." Zhang Zai was even more surprised. "Isn't that just asking to be humiliated? Speaking of which, as a professional manager, why do you always make stupid moves? The sect has paid a high price to hire you in order to help us, a group of low EQ cultivators, not make stupid moves, but I think you're worse than me." The girl sighed and then took out a glittering embroidery needle from her pocket. Zhang Zai's face changed. "I know when this fight is over I'll go challenge Wang Lu and I'll definitely go all out." Since the elders of the Immortal Sect hired this professional manager, Zhang Zai had really suffered from the lightning rod in her hand. That embroidery needle was personally refined by Supreme Tian Luan, which specialized in breaking the world's thunder technique. With one needle, even though his thunder body had been cultivated to the Thunder Immortal technique, which made him almost immune to ordinary physical attacks, he still felt like he was hovering between life and death. With this embroidery needle, the professional manager really had power over his life and death. Even if Zhang Zai didn't want to fight with Wang Lu, he could only prepare for the fight. At the same time, the battle on the martial arts field had also come to an end. Using Solar Fist to seize the opponent's line of sight, and then taking the opportunity to make a sneak attack. Luo Zhao's tactic was originally good, and the Solar Fist indeed dazzled Wang Lu's eyes. However, the combat experience honed from countless battles allowed him to make the correct response in a flash. The expanding sword defense and the roar of thousands of broken swords turned the area hundreds of feet around him into a dead land. Luo Xiao, who was quietly approaching, was also hit by this violent force. No, I admit defeat. In the deep pit, Luo Xiao wrapped himself in a broken black cloak. His whole body was scarred and blood flowed all over the ground. But his bright smile did not change at all. "TSK, even this can't kill you? Haha, I have the treasure of Hua Yan School, the Black Kasaya of the Heavenly Kasaya. Unfortunately, it seems to have been used up by me." As he said that, Luo Xiao stood up, cupped his hands to admit defeat to Wang Lu, and then retreated from the field. Wang Lu shook his head. The other party had admitted defeat, so he couldn't attack anymore. He could only wait for another chance in the future. However, before Wang Lu was ready to get up, a figure outside the martial arts field jumped into the field like lightning, and the awe-inspiring battle intent stabbed toward him like a sword. Wang Lu's spirit couldn't help but shake, and when he saw the identity of the person, he was even more surprised and opened his mouth wide. "Big sister." At the same time, Countless people outside the martial arts field were also stunned. Zhu Shiyao. Why is she here? Chapter 599. On the training field, Zhu Shiyao's unexpected appearance as well as her tit-for-tat imposing manner made the spectators dumbfounded. Among these people, Zhan Zai was the most surprised. He even had to close his dislocated jaw with his hand before he could speak. Junior sister Qian, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you before. I thought that you professional managers are a group of vampires who only take the money but don't work. Unexpectedly, you guys actually have some skills. You've long expected that Zhu Shiyao would jump out to stir up trouble, so you let me go on stage to challenge her. I understand what you mean. I can't win by myself, but if I join forces with Zhu Shiyao, there's hope to trample junior brother Wang Lu under our feet. Shut up. Qian unceremoniously pricked the lightning rod on Zhan Zai's thigh, which immediately made the latter roll on the ground in pain. At the same time, the audience that previously surrounded Zhan Zai, who was full of curiosity about this lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, also quietly retreated a distance, mainly based on their fear of Qian. It was best to stay away from a woman who could torture a veteran lead disciple to roll on the ground. Qian herself turned a blind eye to all of this. She thought that as a professional manager, the only task of her was to assist Zhan Zai to walk on the right path. Today was a good opportunity. Although Wang Lu was strong, he was not invulnerable. His offensive and defensive attributes were indeed unsolvable, but his speed did not form an absolute advantage. As long as Zhan Zai could fully display his lightning immortal technique, at least he could be in an invincible position. Although Zhan Zai couldn't beat his opponent in a protracted fight, in the current critical situation, it was impossible for the two of them to fight a protracted war. If they couldn't decide the outcome after a period of time, naturally, it would be considered a draw. The result of the draw with Wang Lu was very favorable for the current 10,000 Arts sect. Unfortunately, all of this was destroyed by Zhu Shiyao. 2 against 1, not to mention that even so, they still might not be able to do anything to Wang Lu. Even if they could win, what would happen to Zhan Zai's reputation? And what would Wang Lu and Zhu Shiyao think of him, who rashly disturbed the situation? What a pity, I wonder when I'll get another chance like this. Qian shook her head and sighed. Then she grabbed Zhan Zai's right foot and dragged him away, leaving under the shocked gazes of countless people. At the same time, the situation on the martial arts practice field was very subtle. Wang Lu sized him up for a long time before sighing. Eldest senior sister, are you here to praise me for my improvement in cultivation and superb swordsmanship? As Wang Lu spoke, he raised rouge tears again and tightened his muscles, ready to fight at any time. He knew very well what kind of person Grand Senior Sister was. Strictly speaking, Zhu Shiyao was a pure, kind and helpful girl. After years of education and nurturing by Feng Yin Taoist master, her nature was undoubtedly kind. The problem was that apart from being a pure and kind girl, she was also a sword cultivator who would focus on swordsmanship without any distractions. In her eyes, everything in the world was related to swordsmanship. So basically, when people got along with her, they would not see her pure and kind side, only a sword cultivator who was crazy about swordsmanship. Once Zhu Shiyao entered her crazy swordsmanship mode, she would really not recognize anyone. It was obvious why a sword cultivator who did not recognize anyone came in front of him. Well, eldest senior sister, I know you've entered your swordsmanship heat again. After seeing my 3 swordsmanship styles just now, you couldn't help yourself, right? Sai, I also know that it's useless to scold you for not knowing the time and place. Then come and experience it for yourself. Hurry up and go rest after you're satisfied. After saying that, Wang Lu directly greeted with Chaos Sword Qi. The Sword Qi was like a dragon, and the gray sword dragon that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth pounced on the opponent. The awe-inspiring sword power frightened many spectators outside the martial arts practice field. This was not an attack that could be blocked head-on. Fortunately, although this sword was powerful, its speed was slower than usual. If she dodged with all her strength, she should be able to dodge it, for a super elite like Zhu Shiyao. But in the next moment, Zhu Shiyao's choice surprised many people. She raised her sword and moved forward, the tip of her sword facing the Chaos Sword Dragon. She actually wanted to fight head-on against this unstoppable sword. And just when people thought that the girl would be swallowed by the sword dragon, the martial arts practice field flashed with bright starlight, and the thick and long sword dragon disappeared without a trace under the shining starlight. Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. What a good stellar divine eyes. In the eyes of anyone in the same realm, the full-powered attack of the immortal level swordsmanship should be perfect and even beyond imagination. Unfortunately, in Zhu Shiyao's eyes, it was still full of flaws. She aimed at the flaws and only used 10% of her strength to break his full-powered attack. If they fought according to this exchange ratio, the one who would lose would be him. Although he was ahead in terms of realm, the advantage was not absolute. During this period of time, Zhu Shiyao's cultivation progress was also astonishing. She was not completely left behind by him, and her strength was about 20% of his. 10 to 1, it was him who could not afford to delay. Had to deal with a woman only knowing how to rush forward is really not good. However, when it came to skill, what skill in the world could be more exquisite than the stellar divine eyes that could directly see through the future? Non-phase sword and primal chaos heaven-splitting sword had already stood at the peak of the immortal cultivation world in terms of sophistication and complexity, but in Zhu Shiyao's eyes they were still not enough. Especially after the fight with Zhong Xingming in the ancient sword tomb, where Wang Lu obtained the inheritance of the sword demon, Zhu Shiyao's harvest was also not small. Not only did she obtain the inheritance of the sword demon, but also, by chance coincidence, expanded her purple mansion that could accommodate primordial spirit to an unimaginable level. Currently, Zhu Shiyao's King Pill magical power, Jade Mansion, and physical body were not as good as Wang Lu's, but the strength of her primordial spirit was actually higher than Wang Lu's. Therefore, in her eyes, the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword appeared dull and rough. That time when her primordial spirit was strengthened, it really elevated her specialty to a heaven-defying level. However, this scene had long been expected by Wang Lu. His skill was not comparable to Zhu Shiyao's, and it was even more impossible for him to not reveal his flaws in front of her, if he was alone. If he wanted to defeat the opponent, there were only two ways. One was to use an absolute and violent damage output, which was the unlimited use of the 3 consecutive strikes he used against Luo Xiao, which overwhelmed Zhu Shiyao's stellar divine eyes and gradually made it impossible for her to maintain the 10 to 1 exchange ratio. However, the king's way was also the way to victory, but this road really lacked aesthetics. Moreover, Wang Lu believed that his big sister deliberately jumped into the arena not to see this kind of crude fighting method. As expected of the stellar divine eyes. You can even see my hidden trump card? Very well, I'll let you see it. The other way to defeat Zhu Shiyao was to use some external force. Autumn Beam, give me a hand. As soon as his voice fell, the new sword spirit in rouge tears showed her figure. A flawless white hand was placed on Wang Lu's wrist, and a stream of immortal spirit energy was injected from her fingertips, making the immortal sword in Wang Lu's hand become illusory. Subsequently, a primal chaos sword chi shot out from the tip of the sword. The sword chi's trajectory changed several times in mid-air, drawing a zigzag line. Zhu Shiyao's complexion changed, revealing an incredible look. Her dark pupils rapidly enlarged and rapidly changed shape. At the same time, the sword in her hand became unstable and swayed in the air. She actually could not capture the trajectory of the chaotic sword chi, let alone find the flaw in the sword chi. The starry divine eyes had seen through the future countless times, but every time, the result she saw was that she would be defeated by this sword. There was no possibility of victory. The final result was indeed as she predicted. Although Wang Lu's sword did not erupt with all its power, Zhu Shiyao, who had no choice but to use brute force to resist, could no longer resist. She was pushed out by a soft force contained in the sword chi, and her whole body was numb. When she regained control of her body, she had already fallen out of the arena. According to the rules, she was naturally defeated. This was Wang Lu's second method, which was to join forces with the sword spirit, allowing Autumn Beam to make up for the flaws in the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword, dynamically adjusting it so that the sword chi could maintain its flawless state at any time. This style was called Heaven Repairing Sword. Although it seemed that using the sword spirit as a helper did not conform to the one-on-one rules, generally speaking, the sword spirit was tested as an accessory of the immortal sword and was not treated as an independent creature. Even if at this time Autumn Beam was no different from an ordinary creature. Just like the cultivators of the beast taming school, they would fight side by side with their spirit beasts. For a sword cultivator with a sword spirit, relying on the sword spirit was also understandable. Moreover, when Autumn Beam fought alone because she could not reside in Rouge Tears, the difficulty of controlling the immortal treasure greatly increased. The power of Wang Lu's sword chi was weakened by at least 80%. But at the same time, it also became perfect and flawless, just restraining Zhu Shiyao's stellar divine eyes. Big senior sister, this sword is specially dedicated to you. For the time being, I ask you, are you satisfied? Zhu Shiyao was stunned outside the arena for a while. She was not discouraged because of the defeat. Instead, a smile gradually bloomed on her face, and her cheeks were stained with a trace of redness. She looked jubilant. This was what she wanted to see. After witnessing too many victories from the stellar divine eyes, she was actually more eager for a failure. She wanted to say thank you to Wang Lu, but when the words came to her mouth she did not know how to say them. Junior brother Wang Lu, I have been looking forward to this sword for a long time, thank you. Wang. Oh, thank you. With that, Zhu Shiyao looked very tired. After nodding her head, she floated away from the arena. On the arena, Wang Lu looked at the countless horrified faces below the arena. He only felt that everything in front of him was pitch black. Big senior sister, you better not open your mouth in the future. Chapter 600. Wang Lu had embarked on the path of cultivation for more than 20 years, and had faced countless dangers and difficulties, but the word despair could be counted on one hand. No matter how difficult the situation was, there was always hope for a breakthrough. This was the creed of professional adventurers. But at this moment Wang Lu really felt that the situation was hopeless. The words that Grand Senior Sister said before she left made him rack his brains to think of no way to defend himself. It could be said that at this time, whether he admitted it or not, the result was exactly the same. It could be seen from the expressions of the people in the audience. The only way to stop the spread of rumors was to do it on the spot and let facts speak louder than words. However, although Wang Lu still had some confidence in his endurance, to do the yin and yang thing in broad daylight under the watchful eyes of the public was really shameful. Moreover, at this moment he at least needed a target. He couldn't show everyone how dexterous his left and right hands were, could he? But as for the target, who should he look for? Although the audience was intoxicated by the reputation of the legendary King Pill, and there were a lot of women who were willing to have sex with him, Wang Lu did not want to spread his seeds all over the world. Regardless of whether others believed it or not, he was not a casual man. Unable to do it in practice and unable to refute it with words, Wang Lu was in a desperate situation. In his heart he thought, Grand Senior Sister, just you wait. However, perhaps there was always a way out. Just as people began to discuss Zhu Shiyao's parting words, suddenly, a wave of noise spread from far to near. What could shatter a gossip was always another more powerful gossip, and the person passing by at this time was undoubtedly a very strong source of gossip. Finally saved. Wang Lu sighed, then looked up to the distance and greeted, Good morning, Taoist Master Miao Yan. As soon as his voice fell, there was a blur in front of him, and a well-dressed woman appeared in the martial arts arena. Dressed in a gorgeous and dazzling dress, the colorful gems were as bright as stars. However, such an exaggerated dress would not make people feel disgusted, because every detail of her was gorgeous and just right, setting off her appearance and figure to be flawless. Along with her entrance, the entire martial arts practice field seemed to shine brilliantly. Everyone in the audience, regardless of gender, felt their hearts palpitate. Taoist Master Miao Yan, a peerless beauty from Xiuqing Villa who focused on aesthetics, was famous for her meticulously crafted peerless face and her unparalleled beauty technique. Now, as the person in charge of the beauty contest group, she was committed to building a beautiful team of 9 regions. In the competition with the Dixian, the beauty contest was the highlight of the literary competition. Both the attention and the weighted score were quite high. The Wanxian League spared no effort in investing resources on this team. All kinds of rare treasures that could drive girls crazy were piled up like a mountain in the warehouse of the beauty contest group. The mysterious Sky Mansion's propaganda machine was also in full swing, recruiting beautiful girls and men with sufficient aptitudes from all the major cultivation sects in the world, and even from the mortal world. To be able to join this team not only meant that one could get the full effort of Taoist Master Miao Yan and enjoy the precious resources donated by the major sects for free, but it also meant that one would become famous and become a peerless beauty, man, recognized by the Wanxian League. Of course, it was precisely because the benefits were so obvious that people flocked to it like a flock of ducks that the difficulty of joining it could be imagined. Generally speaking, 1 in 10,000 beauties, men, didn't even have the qualifications to see Taoist Master Miao Yan and would be eliminated in the preliminary stage. Conversely, now that Taoist Master Miao Yan had been recognized as a member of the team, there was no doubt that the beauty man was enough to compete with the Dixian. Every time Taoist Master Miao Yan went out, she would bring 1 or 2 team members with her. Taoist Master Miao Yan herself was committed to the pursuit of the ultimate realm of beauty and had no interest in the relationship between men and women. However, she was quite interested in matchmaking. Therefore, if one could perform well in front of Taoist Master Miao Yan, it was possible to start a wonderful journey of love. Not long ago, there was indeed a lucky man who fell in love with a peerless beauty. It was unknown how many men gnashed their teeth in hatred. Now that Taoist Master Miao Yan accidentally visited the royal soldier sect, it was the time for them to do their best. At this moment, who cared about Wang Lu's private gossip? Unfortunately, at this time, Taoist Master Miao Yan had no interest in the performance of those hungry and thirsty people. She just stood on the stage and then looked at Wang Lu with disgust. It's still this unaesthetic dress. I remember telling you don't talk to me while dressed like this. No, don't talk to me with this man's face. Call Wang Lulu out. Right now, our beauty contest group is seriously short of people. Although there are a lot of problems with your face, since you cultivate non-phase method, if you carefully polish it, you can still fight. That's it. Quickly quit this senseless and vulgar fighting group and concentrate on transforming into Wang Lulu to fight with me in the beauty contest group. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu sighed again. With great difficulty he finally got rid of the gossip crisis of his big sister, but unexpectedly he jumped into another fire pit. When this Taoist Master Miao Yan participated in the team formation meeting, she took a fancy to Wang Lu as the chief planner and strongly persuaded him to join her group of peerless beauties. Unfortunately, with the identity of Wang Lulu, only God knows where she learned about Wang Lulu's matter. For this kind of thing, Wang Lu was both angry and amused. Even if I participate in the beauty contest group, I will still participate as a man. Miao Yan sneered. With your condition, you can only transform into a woman and join the women's group. With the contrast in temperament, you have the power to fight. Of course, it's a pity that there's no trap group. Otherwise, with my professional packaging, you are expected to reach the top 3. As for the men's group, your face has not been specially maintained and carefully designed, so no one will want it. Thinking of his own face, which was the same as Wang Wu's, and had never applied any skincare cosmetics, Wang Lu had to say, I can design the selling point to be wild beauty. There are many beast men in the Beast Master School, and there's as much natural wild beauty as you want. After Taoist Master Miao Yan finished speaking, she suddenly froze, her eyes locked on the rouge tears in Wang Lu's hand. Wait, ask the one inside your sword to come out and let me see. Wang Lu was also stunned. Autumn Beam? Yes, that's her. This little girl seems to have experienced a lot. The last time we met, she was just a piece of unpolished jade, but now she has really begun to shine. I didn't expect you to have such a good product by your side. Quickly bring her out and let me train her. Damn, are you a beautician or a pimp? Although he said that, looking at Taoist Master Miao Yan's appearance, she did not seem to be joking, so Wang Lu called out Autumn Beam. Unfortunately, as soon as Autumn Beam appeared, she seemed quite unhappy. Master, Autumn Beam is just a sword spirit. She focuses on the way of the sword and has no intention of being distracted. Moreover, she doesn't like to be watched as a product. Wang Lu nodded and said to Miao Yan, look, that's what the person said. Taoist Master Miao Yan gave a thumbs up and said, what I want is this noble and elegant temperament. Especially when a person with this temperament is forced to participate in a beauty contest to be judged, that kind of unwillingness and even humiliation is simply a manifestation of the ultimate beauty. The more I look at you, the more I feel that you're a pure pervert. Alas, it's useless to explain it to people like you who don't understand aesthetics. In short, just leave it to me. If this beauty is hidden, it would be a crime against the entire 9 regions. Moreover, at the founding meeting of the team, you stood on the rostrum and said that this competition was related to the life and death of 9 regions, and that anyone in any organization must unconditionally obey the overall situation. It was because of this sentence that I was caught by you from the villa to be a beautician. Don't tell me that when it comes to you, you want to shrink back? I didn't force you to become Wang Lulu in the girl group, which is already a compromise. That's true, but Autumn Beam is the sword spirit of my immortal sword, and as the main force of the King Pill level in the fighting group, I can't do without the help of the sword spirit. What kind of reason is that? The competition is not carried out at the same time, can't you just participate one after the other? Don't forget that I also have Cheonghua in my team. Isn't she also the main force of the King Pill group? Hearing Taoist Master Miao Yan's words, Wang Lu was at his wit's end. It was just that, looking at Autumn Beam's embarrassed look, he really didn't want to force her to participate. However, on the other hand, it was not easy to persuade Taoist Master Miao Yan. By the way, how about this? I'll make an exchange with you. I'll recommend you a peerless beauty as a replacement. Taoist Master Miao Yan said, do you want to recommend Lu Li Zhu Shiyao and Bai Shixin? They have long been my favorite candidates, so you don't need to recommend them. No, I guarantee that it's a mysterious beauty that you've never seen before, and the quality is higher than Autumn Beam. With your aesthetic ability, do you know the difference between good and bad? You take a look first. If it's not suitable, you can force Autumn Beam. When the time comes, I will have no complaints. Taoist Master Miao Yen hesitated for a moment, and finally, looking at the face of Wang Lu, the chief planner, she nodded. Soon after, Wang Lu led Taoist Master Miao Yen to his room. Before entering, he said loudly, "Master, someone is looking for you." A lazy voice came from the room, "If it's to collect debts, help me send them away. In any case, you have a lot of public funds in your hands." "No, it's Taoist Master Miao Yen, the person in charge of the beauty contest." Wang Wu's voice suddenly became a bit more energetic. "Did she bring the girls to me to ask for advice on telepathic finger? She came to you to participate in the beauty contest." "Not interested." While the master and disciple were talking, Taoist Master Miao Yan's eyebrows wrinkled more and more tightly. "Wang Lu, you want to recommend me to your master? Don't joke around. What kind of beauty is there in that kind of careless and shameless woman?" Wang Lu said, "That's just because you don't realize how powerful her subjective initiative is. Don't forget that the non-phase method that you value is created by her, and her attainments in it are 10 times higher than mine." In short, Wang Lu turned his head and said, "Master, if you can be selected into this team, there will be an unlimited supply of all kinds of rare treasures. And if you can become the main force of the team, you can have hundreds of millions of yuan just by virtue of popularity alone. When the time comes, you can write an autobiography and publish a photo album, and the spirit stones will be as endless as the Yangtze River." "I know, come in." Wang Lu pushed the door and entered. As soon as he entered the door, he was as if petrified, motionless. Within the bedroom, a peerless beauty with long hair that flowed down like a waterfall in a plain white dress was lazily leaning against the window. Her flawless appearance and enchanting curves revealed an unprecedented shock. If there was anything in this world that was perfect, it would definitely be this scene right now. Just when Wang Lu was deeply shocked by this scene, the woman in white smiled sweetly, stood up from the window, and then reached out her hand to the equally shocked Taoist Master Miao Yen behind Wang Lu. "Hello, I am Murong Bingli Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air. My dream is to be the #1 idol in 9 regions. I hope we can work hard together in the future." Chapter 601. When he came out of the room, Wang Lu felt that his whole brain began to hurt. If he had known that things would develop to this point, he might as well stay put in the face of the gossip and enjoy the speed and passion. Moreover, gossip was just gossip. Anyone who could use their brain should know that it was just a misunderstanding. The dignified Taoist master of non-phase had a terrible rough skin and thick flesh, so how could his sensitivity be so low? As for those who were too lazy to even use their brain, Wang Lu didn't need to pay attention to them. In any case, his reputation had never been good. In his early years, after crushing Lu Li with his IQ, he was described by a group of flower protectors as the most despicable and shameless crooked person in the world. And over the years, with one controversial victory after another, the evaluation of him was also polarized. Therefore, Wang Lu really didn't worry that he had no enemies. Even if Zhu Shiyao's misunderstanding spread, at most, he would have to spend some effort to hire professional complainers to sue those who spread the rumor until they lost all their money. Unfortunately, a moment of wavering made him choose a seemingly shortcut, but in fact, it was a road to hell. Just now, in his own room, the girl Murong Bingli Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air and Taoist Master Miao Yen made an agreement to summon the sun and the moon to form a popular idol group in 9 regions and make all the men and women in the world their captives. Taoist Master Miao Yen originally didn't care about the reputation. She only pursued the realization of her own aesthetics. However, after a heart-to-heart talk with Murong Bingli Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air in the room, she was moved by the latter's ideal and became an important member of the team. As long as he thought of the scene where in the near future, all the cultivators in the world would hold a glow stick and shout, "Long live Wu Air," Wang Lu felt that he would definitely become the sinner of 9 regions. A moment of misconception let him open a terrifying door. When he wanted to close the door, he couldn't do it. No, wait a minute, things have not reached the desperate time yet. If one day the idol group of Murong Bingli in Night Charm Phoenix, Yen Yuan, Wu Air became unstoppable, then he only needed to exert his influence in the Union of 10,000 Immortals and ask the relevant departments to issue a notice to ban the banned artists. Alas, but before that, I can only ask the people of the 9 regions to take care of themselves. I'm very busy right now, I don't have the time and energy to dwell on these details. Although this reason was rather suspicious of avoiding reality, the burden on Wang Lu's shoulders was indeed very heavy. As the chief planner of this competition, there were a lot of things that he had to think about and make decisions on. At the same time, he was also one of the main members of the King Pill's combat and literary combat teams. He had participated in more than 50 competitions and had a considerable advantage in most of them. Not only did he have to spend time practicing the competition, but he also had to stand on a higher point of view and command the overall situation. Wang Lu was simply too busy. Fortunately, the person who took up most of his training time was the offensive team's training partner, Murong Bingli Night Glamour Phoenix Stunning Oriental Wu. She threw away the iron rice bowl that everyone envied and resolutely chose to pursue her dreams. This caused the offensive team's training to be temporarily paralyzed, giving Wang Lu a few days to catch his breath. Therefore, Wang Lu had the energy to pay attention to some trivial matters in his busy schedule. "Brother Wang Lu, this is the form you want." In the bedroom that Wang Lu had turned into an office, the inner court disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, Hai Yunfan, handed a form to Wang Lu, which recorded the information that Wang Lu wanted. This noble young master from the royal family has been cultivating for more than 20 years, and his cultivation base was already at the top of the inner court disciples. However, compared to his cultivation base, his meticulous thinking, strict execution, and strong tolerance were even more precious. Therefore, Hai Yunfan was fortunate enough to join the conference team and became Wang Lu's personal secretary. Regarding this secretary, Wang Lu's evaluation was very positive, especially when he saw the meticulous preparation of the report in his hand. Even the typesetting and writing were flawless. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. "Little Hai, apart from your gender, you're simply the perfect secretary candidate." Hai Yunfan wryly smiled and said, "Brother Wang, your tone now is more and more like my wife's." Wang Lu was immediately stunned. "Are you flirting with me or making a perverted confession?" "I'm sorry for the slip of the tongue. It's just that just now I couldn't help but express my feelings. When I wrote to you before, I also mentioned that in recent years, because of the bottleneck in her cultivation, Feifei's master wanted her to extensively dabble in knowledge and expand her accumulation. Therefore, she began to indulge in all kinds of novels, especially in the hell of romance. Some time ago, when I tried to break through the bottleneck with her, she suddenly said with emotion that if she were a man, she and I would be a perfect pair." Wang Lu used more than 50% of the power of the King Pill to hold back his laughter. However, when he opened his mouth, his voice was still slightly distorted. "If necessary, I can help you contact Taoist Master Miayan. She seems to be very professional in this area." Hai Yunfan sighed and said, "I finally understand what it feels like to be besieged in the wedding letter that Brother Wang wrote to me. Aha, little Hai, this kind of thinking is very dangerous. It's a typical precursor of cheating. So do you want me to introduce you to some mistresses?" While teasing her, Wang Lu looked down at the report in his hand. Before long he sighed. Not long after he sighed and said, "This Luo Xiao is really a talent. He participated in 13 projects, of which 5 of them were weighted above the B level, and he performed well in all of them. He's almost catching up with me." "Catching up with you? Your data is at least 3 times his. It's not even on the same level. Moreover, among the King Pill level cultivators, there are more than 1 or 2 people who performed better than Luo Xiao. The chief disciples of the 5 uniques are all above him. So, why do you pay so much attention to him?" Wang Lu said, "My intuition tells me that this guy is not a good thing." "Is that so? But his reputation is pretty good. If you deliberately target him, I'm afraid you'll feel a lot of pressure," Hai Yunfan said, vaguely reminding him. Wang Lu frowned and said, "There'll be pressure? Then I have to give it a try. How about this, little Hai? Help me draft a document and give him a bit of trouble. For example, strengthening the management of cultivators' clothing and hairstyles, forbidding some obviously offensive clothing, such as wearing black clothes with a bald head that easily reminds people of long, straight black hair." Hai Yunfan smiled and silently cupped his hands to bid farewell. A moment later he came back with a scroll in his hands. He had finished drafting the notice about strengthening the management of clothing and hairstyles. Wang Lu looked through it and found that little Hai was worthy of being a perfect secretary apart from his gender. He had grasped the leader's intentions very well. In the words of the notice, he used a dignified reason to specially give Luo Xiao a pair of small shoes. "Next, let's see who will give me pressure for Luo Xiao." The answer that Wang Lu was looking forward to was soon revealed. No one came to give Wang Lu pressure, because Luo Xiao obediently changed his clothing according to the notice's requirements. He unhesitatingly changed out of the Flower Stern sect's most precious black kasaya in response to the notice's requirements. Of course, There were indeed quite a few people who could see that Wang Lu's notice was deliberately targeting Luo Xiao. But without exception they were all persuaded by Luo Xiao. Luo Xiao said, "At a critical moment, the overall situation is the most important. So I, the chief planner, am a despicable person who can't see the overall situation? This Luo Xiao is really slick, but this isn't unexpected." "Little Hai, what did those old men say?" Hai Yunfan said, "They didn't say anything. Even if I asked indirectly, the answer I got was ambiguous." "TSK, it seems that they still don't completely trust me?" Hai Yunfan asked, "Brother Wang, do you think that after seeing this notice, they should cooperate with you to make things difficult for Luo Xiao? If they really believe me, then they should know that I have no reason to find trouble with a baldy for no reason. I don't know him at all and I have no enmity with him. How sick would I be to make things difficult for him? I have a grudge against the beast taming school and I can treat them equally. Do you think that I can't tolerate a flower-stern sect?" Hai Yunfan said, "Brother Wang's words make sense, but not everyone understands your painstaking efforts." Wang Lu sneered twice. His fingers tapped on the table for a while, and he let out a long sigh, throwing this matter to the back of his mind. If they don't understand, then they don't understand. At worst, I'll just be a lonely handsome man. This tournament isn't just about me. If they're willing to believe in Luo Xiao, then let them solve their own problems in the future. I still have a lot of problems to deal with. As Wang Lu spoke, he picked up the latest daily report. Why did the 100 Withers sect withdraw from the competition? They are the main force in the poison event. The name list has already been decided and they are about to start training, but they want to withdraw from the competition. Do they not want to stay in the Wanxian League anymore? Hai Yunfan smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Wang, you may not know this, but the 100 Withers Gate withdrew from the competition because their main force was severely injured and on the verge of death. Aren't they experts in poison? Yeah, but this time it went too far. The poison team is full of elites. In order to stand out from the crowd, they over-exaggerated their subjective initiative and completely disregarded the objective rules. They did not hesitate to take risks to develop a new poison. In the end, the poison was not developed and the main team was sacrificed." Wang Lu slammed the table angrily. "How did these idiots get in here? Didn't I repeatedly emphasize the need to conduct an IQ test for the selected members? Those with insufficient IQ can only be asterisk 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 asterisk. They can never be included in the official list." Hai Yunfan said, "That rule has been rejected by the elders. After all, you're just the planner, not the person in charge. TSK, this bunch of fools always hold me back. Now without the 100 Withers sect, where can I find another sect that is good at poison development?" Hai Yunfan had the same feeling. The 100 Withered sect indeed has a unique secret in developing and innovating poisons with local materials. On this point, even our 10,000 Arts sect is ashamed of our inferiority. It's indeed difficult to find a substitute in a short period of time. Those evil sects may have someone who specializes in this, but if we want to communicate with them, we don't know how long it would take. Development and innovation. That's right, the 100 Withers sect's participation in the sub-project doesn't focus on the toxicity and lethality of the poison, but on the innovation of the content and form. That's right, I have an idea. Wang Lu clapped his hands and said to Hai Yunfan, "Little Hai, help me write an invitation to the Misty Peak of Lingjian School." "Yes, that's right, it's my sect. But don't write it in my name, use the name of the organizing committee. Just say that we sincerely invite the famous chef Aya to participate in the development of exotic cuisine." Development of exotic cuisine? Yes, just say that she will try her best to present the flavor of her homeland, and combine it with the characteristics of 9 regions to innovate. Then send all the finished products to the poison team, there will be a surprise. Chapter 602. As the chief planner of the event, Wang Lu's life was busy and fulfilling. Every day he spent half of his time sweating in the various training grounds of Royal Soldier Sect, and half of his time was buried in his desk. At the same time, he occasionally came forward to coordinate the relationship between all parties, as well as to deal with the trouble caused by the gradually rising popularity idol, Murong Bingli Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air. This grand competition with the earthly immortals was like a huge machine. As time went by, everything began to go on the right track and run in an orderly manner. Every day it had to swallow countless resources. The manpower and material resources that the Wanxian League had invested in this grand competition were even enough to create the Ark of Salvation that Xinjing sect once promoted as a concept that could prop up a pure land in the age of chaos. In just 1 month, the Wanxian League had been fully mobilized by this grand competition, erupting with amazing cohesion and action force. The boundaries between sects continued to fade, and even the relationship between the righteous and the evil path became closer and closer. All of this was attributed to the original plan of Wang Lu. In the plan for the competition against Dixian, Wang Lu tried to emphasize the concept of team. Even if it was a one-on-one event, it had to be a best of 5 to determine the winner and loser. Therefore, in the preparation for the Wanxian League, a large team had to be prepared for any event. Taking into account the main team and other factors, the number of cultivators who actually participated in the event was several times more than 2,000 people. And the number of people who served in this team was tens of thousands. Under the sincere unity, all the estrangement and misunderstandings began to gradually dissipate. In just over a month, the Wanxian League showed an unprecedented scene of peace and prosperity. Therefore, some people even said that even if the result of this grand competition ended in the victory of Dixian, based on this cohesion alone, the Wanxian League would not suffer a loss. However, the people who struggled in the front line of the organizing committee obviously could not set the goal so low. In order to win, they did their best. The elixir of Xinjing sect has arrived. Those of you who can continue to digest the elixir quickly eat it. After that, go to the 100 refinement copper furnace to pressurize and refine the elixir. Let's try to have a few more people reach the peak of King Pill before the competition begins. In a closed training room, a cultivator who looked like an elder was carrying a huge iron box with a face full of exhaustion. The box was filled with colorful porcelain bottles. In front of the elder was a row of King Pill level cultivators sitting on the praying mat. Most of them were high-grade King Pill and a few of them were middle-grade King Pill. However, without exception, these people's cultivation base was progressing at an alarming rate. Almost every breath made their King Pill more condensed, and their Jade Mansion more stable. The training room they were in was located in the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, on the side of the primordial earth vein. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth was so dense that it was almost substantial. When it was close to the center of the earth vein, it would even gush out energy with a quality close to that of the immortal chi. It was worthy of being called a holy place for cultivation. Now, this holy land had been opened to the organizing committee by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. A group of cultivators with excellent qualifications and unique skills, but unfortunately, their realms had not yet reached the consummate stage, were sprinting before the competition. Their goal was to reach the consummate stage of their realm within 2 months. Starting from the King Pill stage, each promotion was a brand new training for cultivators. Most of the people in the world with King Pill level had no hope to break through to the Yuaning stage in their lifetime. The result of hundreds of years of bitter cultivation was only to hone the King Pill more condensed. Even for those with outstanding aptitude, if they wanted to advance to the next stage, it would take several years of hard work. Since the end of the Age of Chaos, those who could complete the King Pill stage to Yuaning stage within 20 years were already considered as extraordinary geniuses. Like Wang Lu, in just a few years, from the low-grade King Pill stage all the way to the peak of King Pill stage, it was simply a miracle that could not be replicated. To break through to the peak of King Pill stage in a short period of time, relying on the power of the ancient feng shui line was not enough. They had to rely on the power of medicinal pills and other external objects. Even so, in this group of 30 people, only half of them could eventually reach the peak of King Pill stage. And among these half who succeeded, the other half had to experience the torment of the side effects. Cultivating to become an immortal was originally a heaven-defying act, and pulling seedlings to help them grow was even more disgraceful. Without a good enough aptitude, one simply could not stand the rapid progress of cultivation base in a short period of time. However, for the big competition in a month or so, at this time no one could care so much. After 2 months, the Wanxian League gradually became infected with a fanatical mood. Hey, unexpectedly, cultivators from small and medium-sized sects like us can actually enjoy the treatment of the geniuses and elites of high-rank sections. Ancient feng shui line, Xinjing immortal pill, these things that we once dreamed of, are now within our reach. I don't know if I should thank those Dixian people. In the training room, a cultivator who had just digested the Xinjing immortal pill and was still slowly bleeding from his 7 orifices stood up with a smile on his face. He stretched his limbs and issued a series of crackling sounds. That's really cool, long live the Dixian people. Ah. His loud noise, coupled with his rebellious speech, was immediately exchanged with a lot of disgusted looks from the surrounding people. The cultivator shrugged his shoulders. I know you hate me. I can't help it, you disciples of high-rank sects can't understand the difficulty of us at the bottom. In my sect, for the sake of a bottle of immortal pill, even blood brothers may turn against each other. My junior sister, who was my childhood sweetheart, resolutely threw herself into the arms of others for half a bottle of immortal pill. Alas, in the past for such a bottle of immortal pill I was willing to sell my kidney. But now I can take a whole bottle every day. Moreover, there's also a copper furnace to help me digest it. This is something that I can't even dream about. Listening to the emotional outpouring of this cultivator from a small sect, the geniuses present felt a bit speechless. Their eyes that looked at him also became a bit more gentle. The ancient sages said, if one hears the Tao in the morning, one can die in the evening. My feeling now is that if one takes a mortal pill in the morning, one can die in the evening. But rest assured, I won't die that easily. Although I come from a humble background, at least I know the principle of being loyal to the ruler. The Wuxia League has given me so many benefits. Even if I die without a burial place, I will defeat those Dixian people in the competition. At least I will never hold you back, ha. As soon as that person finished speaking, a strange voice came from behind him. Lu Chuan, no one wants you to die without a burial place. On the contrary, you have to live well until the day you reach Yuaning or deity stage. The grand competition is not the end of the world, it's just the beginning of a bigger war. While speaking, a young man in a red and white robe came into the room. He first nodded to the old cultivator at the door, then walked to the medicine box, picked up a porcelain bottle, poured out 2 pills, swallowed them and then nodded. Fortunately, although the process of refining has been simplified, the potency is still within the acceptable range. Xingjing sect people are not as unkind as the rumors say. Well, you guys can do your best, I won't bother you anymore. With that, the young man turned around and left. Lu Chuan looked at his back with some surprise. Who is this guy? How could he know me? Is he from the organizing committee? He looks like a supreme. I think he's just at the peak of King Pill, right? The surrounding people sucked in a breath of cold air. Lu Chuan, are you out of your mind? You don't even know Wang Lu. Even if you come from a small place, you can't be so ignorant, right? Lu Chuan, on the other hand, was baffled. Do I need to know Wang Lu? He's not a supreme of Unity stage. There are so many King Pill in the Wuxia League, how could I know all of them? I only remember famous people from deity stage and above. The King Pill people present were deeply speechless about the education policy of such a small sect. The old man at the door sighed and said, even if you don't know all the King Pill in the world, you still have to know him. He is now a standing committee member of the organizing committee of the grand competition, the chief planner of the whole event. Do you think it's necessary for you to know him? Lu Chuan was startled. Standing committee member? Didn't they say that one must at least have the cultivation base of peak deity stage? Even if he's the son of Supreme He too, there's no need to make such an exception, right? And what's with the chief planner? There are so many seniors and elders, yet he's the one to plan the event? Alas, his affairs can't be explained in a few words. If you really want to know, recently, someone has been selling his biography. Biography? How old is he, yet he has already started to publish a book. It's very popular. I don't know who the author is, but he wrote the details of Wang Lu's daily life in detail. Even if you know that it's probably made up by the author, it's still fascinating. A few days ago, I saw that even the Supreme of Unity stage in Kunlun Immortal Mountain was reading that book. Lu Chuan was dumbfounded. Is it that amazing? If you don't believe it, you can go to the mysterious Sky Mansion to buy it. The title of the book is The Legendary Adventure of Curing the World. The author is I Love Big Brother. I understand. Alas, wherever I go, I'm surrounded by people like a rare animal. Is this the trouble of being an idol? After inspecting the situation of the training room, Wang Lu returned to Royal Soldier Sect through the transmission array set up between the 5 uniques. Along the way, he complained to his secretary Hai Yunfan about the recent situation. I think you might as well learn from Murong Bingli Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air and enjoy the pleasure of being an idol. Don't mention that guy, I have a stomachache. Hai Yunfan pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose. The stomachache is probably because you just ate some exotic food. Speaking of which, I really admire you more and more. How did you eat that? Supreme looks up at the starry sky. How else can I eat it? Being looked at by Aya with that kind of expectant look, can you vomit? Alas, this is really a trap of one's own making. By the way, help me inform the poison team that the new poison is quite strong. The King Pill level non-phase sword bone can't hold it anymore. I've recorded your painful expression at that moment and sent it to them. They were very happy. Good job, little Hai, you're indeed my secretary. While talking, the two of them passed through the transmission array and returned to Royal Soldier Sect, the training ground of Wang Lu, which was also his office. However, as soon as they landed, Hai Yunfan raised his head in surprise. It seems that a guest has come to visit. Wang Lu also raised his head and then looked at the old figure with great surprise. Uncle Sect Leader? Why are you here? Chapter 603. This was the first time that Wang Lu saw Feng Yin Taoist master since his self-awakening dream. It had been a lot since the last time they met. After the end of the journey, Wang Lu returned to 9 regions. By chance he met Lu Li by chance and was expected to go to the group of immortal tombs together. Then, because of the sword demon mark on his body, he was fancied by Dixian Shenemo and pulled into her immortal dreamland. After that, he experienced the adventure of asking the heaven, which opened the prelude to the grand competition. During this period, although the Wanxian League held many meetings and Wang Lu and Feng Yin were both important members for various reasons, they could not meet directly. The communication between the two was through letters. When he saw Feng Yin Taoist master again, Wang Lu was in a trance, as if he had returned to 150 years ago. At that time, the current Feng Yin Taoist master was just a clumsy young kid. Because of his strong sense of responsibility and tenacity, he was fancied by Wang Lu as a pillar of the golden generation. Now, the kid had grown into a hateful old ghost, and the tender sprout had truly become a towering tree that sheltered the Lingjian school. It was not difficult to imagine how much Feng Yin himself had paid for it. He had inherited the legacy of many golden generation, and his aptitude and perception were the best in the world. However, in more than 100 years he was promoted from King Pill to peak deity stage. Moreover, he was comparable to a supreme. This was by no means a normal path for him. This could also be seen from his old face and figure. From King Pill, the lifespan of a cultivator was more than 500 years, and after reaching deity stage the lifespan could be more than 1,500 years. According to this standard, Feng Yin was actually very young and should not look so old. Obviously, this was one of the prices he had paid for 150 years. Thinking of this, Wang Lu's complex feelings were indescribable. The two identities of Ouyang Shang and Wang Lu continued to intertwine and flash. Then, Brother Wang, it just so happens that I have some matters to attend to, so I'll excuse myself first. Seeing that Wang Lu was a little absent-minded, and considering that Feng Yin Taoist master had come here in a low-key manner, he probably had some internal affairs of the sect to discuss with him. Hai Yunfan cleverly chose to leave in time. As soon as Hai Yunfan left, Wang Lu regained his senses and put on a warm smile. Sect Master Martial Uncle, please come in and wait for me to serve you some tea. As he spoke, he took a few steps forward, pushed open the door of his house and welcomed Feng Yin in. Soon, he made Feng Yin the superior spirit tea that was sent by several middle-rank sect leaders. Feng Yin took the tea, took a sip, and exclaimed, "This is really good tea. It's a gift from the owner of the fragrant tea tower. Looks like they weren't bragging. They really did send something good." Feng Yin put down the teacup and said with a smile, "Not bad, even the owner of the fragrant tea tower wants to send you a gift." Wang Lu said, "I can't ask for help empty-handed. The fragrant tea tower intends to monopolize the supply of tea for the grand competition and send tea to all the high-level members of the organizing committee. It's a pity that you refused the invitation of the organizing committee, otherwise, you would have gotten more tea than me." Feng Yin said, "Recently your story has been spread everywhere in the Wanxian League." Wang Lu asked, "That legendary adventure of curing the world sold so well? Jiske, that guy Wang Wu earned a good sum of money?" As he spoke, Wang Lu didn't waste time and directly began to deal with the official documents. In any case, Feng Yin Taoist master didn't care about these red tape, but he was really busy. However, Wang Lu originally intended to deal with the official documents while chatting with Feng Yin. However, when he was immersed in the documents, the room remained silent for a long time. Feng Yin Taoist master actually didn't say a word. It was not until Wang Lu had dealt with a heavy document in his hand, signed his opinion on the front page, and subconsciously prepared to ask Hai Yunfan to help him publish it that he found that his uncle's sect leader was quietly watching him at the table. He had been waiting for him for a long time. What's the matter with Uncle's sect leader this time?" Unexpectedly, Feng Yin didn't say a word and just quietly watched him. However, what was more frightening was that the focus of his eyes was obviously behind him. "Uncle sect leader, do you need a new pair of glasses?" Wang Lu simply moved 10 feet to the side, but he found that sect leader Feng Yin was still motionless. If it weren't for his light and long breathing, he would be like a dead person. Could it be that he's possessed by the devil while practicing? It's better to call my master over and steal his golden seal while he's still stiff. Whether it succeeds or not, I can still watch a good show. As a result, when Wang Lu was about to contact his master, he saw that Feng Yin had already woken up and sighed. It's really similar. Really similar? Feng Yin looked at Wang Lu meaningfully and said, "The current you reminds me more and more of a friend who has passed away for many years." Wang Lu asked with a smile, "First, is it a man or a woman?" "Of course it's a man. The best man in 9 regions." Feng Yin said, "Originally my position should belong to him." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu put down the document and writing brush in his hand, because Feng Yin Taoist master had made it very clear that he was talking about Ouyang Shang. It was very strange. About Ouyang Shang, except for Wang Wu, Wang Lu had never told anyone else, and he believed that Wang Wu would not easily reveal this secret. So how did Feng Yin Taoist master know about it? Was it because, as he gradually separated from his disciple status and walked to the front of the stage? Would the change in temperament really make people involuntarily think of Ouyang Shang? Most likely not. In terms of temperament and character, the difference between Wang Lu and Ouyang Shang was quite big. Otherwise, no one in Spirit Sword Mountain could see that he was the reincarnation of Ouyang Shang for so many years. Or could it be that his pair of stellar divine eyes had improved and could already see through all the secrets in the world? That should not be the case. After all, Feng Yin's stellar eyes was an acquired magical ability, which was the highest realm of insight into all things. He basically had no hope in his life. Cultivating the stellar divine eyes was just to pave the way for Zhu Shiyao. After thinking about it, Wang Lu could not figure out how Feng Yin Taoist master saw through his identity. However, this problem was not important. What was important was what Feng Yin was going to do after knowing the truth. Over the years, I have been thinking about what would happen if it was not me, but that person who was in charge of Lingjian School. Every time I think about it, I can't help but feel ashamed. Hearing this, Wang Lu's heart was heavy. He wanted to speak out, but found that Feng Yin Taoist master's eyes had become a bit blank, so he suddenly understood. What he needed was not someone's explanation, but a quiet listener. In the official history, at the last moment, Ouyang Shang perished together with Dixian, and his soul flew to the sky. Leaving behind the remnants of the Golden Generation, they returned to the sect to rebuild the sect. However, on the Spirit Sword Mountain, how could a group of King Pill stage disciples support the brand of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League? Everyone in Heavenly Sword Hall had paid a great deal of effort and sacrifice for this. Among the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall, the top 3 were already white-haired and looked haggard. However, Lu Xian, Fang He, and the others at least had Feng Yin, their big brother, to shelter them from the wind and rain. Feng Yin, on the other hand, had to shoulder all the difficulties alone. Thinking about it this way, it was not difficult to understand the depression in the heart of the leader of Lingjian School. Thus, while dealing with the official documents again, Wang Lu quietly listened to the nagging of Feng Yin Taoist master. It was just that, from the beginning to the end, he didn't say a word. The purpose of Feng Yin's trip, Wang Lu could more or less guess it. For Feng Yin, if the big brother whom he worshipped like a god was still alive, he had no reason to continue to steal the position of sect leader, and naturally he should abdicate. However, for Wang Lu, this decision of Feng Yin, whether it was a whim or a deliberate decision, was absolutely unacceptable. The reason was very simple. Because, according to the standard of the sect leader, he was far less suitable than Feng Yin. It was true that in some management methods and intelligence, Wang Lu was more astute and flexible than Feng Yin. However, the supreme leader of a sect did not need brilliant means, but connections and prestige. Today's Lingjian School was no longer the sect that struggled to be reborn from the ruins 150 years ago. The elders of Heavenly Sword Hall were already the tyrants of the 9 regions. In the past 150 years, the sect had made friends all over the world, established cooperation with many top-ranked sects, and became a truly indispensable pole in the Wanxian League. And these cooperating sects recognized the name of the sect leader, Feng Yin, not Ouyang Shang, who should have died 150 years ago, and not the young King Pill who had just emerged. Wang Lu rashly took over the position of sect leader, which would only make the Lingjian School a laughingstock in the eyes of countless people, and the accumulation of 150 years would go down the drain. Moreover, right now Wang Lu did not have so much energy to take charge of a sect. His goal was never the golden seal of the sect leader of Lingjian School. After crossing the world, he had a more important goal. Lingjian School had Feng Yin, Heavenly Sword Hall, Lu Li, and Zhu Shiyao, these rare geniuses. Its rising momentum had long been unstoppable, so whether there was Wang Lu or not, there was no essential difference. However, there were some things that only Wang Lu could do. After no one knew how much time had passed, Wang Lu had finished dealing with the documents on the table. Therefore he said to Feng Yin, "Uncle Sect Leader, although I haven't been cultivating for a long time, my knowledge can be regarded as extensive. In my opinion, there is no one in Lingjian School who is more suitable than you to be the sect leader. Uncle Sect Leader, please don't belittle yourself, and don't erase the hard work of you and the people around you in the past 150 years. At the same time, I also ask Uncle Sect Leader to be prepared to continue to struggle. It's still far from the time when you can unload the burden. You have supported Lingjian School from the edge of collapse to today, so you should know that any imaginary savior is not as realistic as having your feet on the ground. If you really think that there is a person in this world who can do better than you, then strive to be as good as that person." Being persuaded by Wang Lu in such an old-fashioned tone, Feng Yin was not annoyed, but just chuckled softly. "You're right. I'm already so old, but I'm like a child who has some unrealistic dreams. Well, since even you, the lead disciple, said so, I will continue to struggle for the position of sect leader for a few more years. I just hope that when everything is over, that person won't blame me." Chapter 604. Sect Master Martial Uncle, is there something important that you came all the way here to find me for? After unraveling the knot in Feng Yin's heart, the atmosphere in the room relaxed a lot. Wang Lu served another cup of tea to Feng Yin Taoist master and asked him about his purpose. Feng Yin took the teacup and enjoyed the superior tea of the fragrant tea house. He then said softly, "There are indeed two things. One is that I need you to make some changes to the current list of participants and add a few people." "What?" Feng Yin said, "Hua Yun has refined her Yuanying 10,000 times, and now it has 9 colors. In the Yuanying group, she can also serve as the main force in many events. In addition, Lu Li has also unexpectedly advanced. Now she is a high-level king pill which can have a place in your attack group." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu could not help but be stunned. Aunt Hua Yun has been refining her Yuanying for many years, trying to promote her 7-colored Yuanying to 9-colored, so it's reasonable for her to finish the work ahead of time. But what about Lu Li? I remember that fourth uncle doesn't intend to help her improve her skill quickly just because of this grand competition. Feng Yin Taoist master said, "There is no external force to induce it. It's purely because she suddenly had an epiphany in her cultivation, and then her cultivation base advanced by leaps and bounds." Epiphany? Lu Li? Wang Lu was dumbfounded. On the path of immortal cultivation, it was not new for one's cultivation base to soar because of an epiphany. However, the conditions for achieving an epiphany were actually very harsh, which could be regarded as an opportunity that could not be sought. Wang Lu had never had an experience that could be called an epiphany in his many years of cultivation. Not only Lu Li but also Yao Er. After her fight with you a few days ago, she also had an epiphany. Right now, she is cultivating in seclusion on Spirit Sword Mountain. I'm afraid that after this seclusion, she will also usher in a transformation. In addition, recently the elite disciples of the major sects have had an epiphany or other kind of adventure. They either stumbled upon an ancient ruin, picked up a heavenly treasure, or inexplicably broke through a bottleneck that had troubled them for many years. Wang Lu's brows gradually furrowed. Something abnormal must be a demon. What do you think, sect leader Sherbois? Is there a mastermind behind all of this or some sort of conspiracy? For example, Dixian is using genetically modified products to exterminate the cultivators of 9 regions. Feng Yin said, "I tried to use the star diffraction technique to deduce many times, but I couldn't find any mastermind behind the scenes. I could only see that these people's luck was extremely exuberant, like the proud sons of heaven." Exuberant providence, favored by the heavens? When Wang Lu heard this, his face gradually darkened. Sure enough, everything in the world had a reason. It was fine if 1 or 2 people had a fortuitous encounter, but now, this fortuitous encounter was like a wholesale group purchase. It seemed that 9 regions could no longer bear the loneliness. Having the blessing of the 9 regions was undoubtedly a good thing. The world was vast, and no matter how strong a cultivator was, it still seemed insignificant. With the blessing of the great 9 regions, naturally, everything would go smoothly. However, after experiencing the pain of 150 years ago, Wang Lu knew that the providence of 9 regions was not always reliable, and it might even become a weapon in the hands of the enemy. The fallen immortals could manipulate the providence of 9 regions, and those who succeeded because of the providence would eventually fail because of the providence. At that time, more than 100 people of the Golden Generation were like clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of a seriously injured and dying Mr. Fengyu. This drag of providence was undoubtedly an important incentive. It could even be said that part of the reason why his soul traveled through the world was for the sake of the word providence. A body that was not contaminated by the providence of 9 regions was likely to be the key to the decisive battle in the future. As his thoughts drifted away, it took some time for Wang Lu to gather his thoughts and said to Feng Yin, "It's not difficult to adjust the list. In any case, with the deepening of the training, there will be several major changes in the list. Those who can't adapt to the training will be kicked out, and those who perform well in the reserve team will come in as substitutes. It's not a problem for me to add a few people." "Then uncle, what's the second thing you said?" When it came to the second thing, Feng Yin took a long breath and then put on a very solemn posture. "As for the second thing?" As he said that, his voice suddenly became very soft. Recently, because the current chef of the Misty Peak cafeteria is on a business trip, they temporarily invited a chef from the Heavenly Fragrance Kitchen. The chef's cooking is very well received. The inner court disciples have said that the former chef doesn't need to come back, and even junior brother Lucien expressed his agreement. "I think you have a close relationship with her, so it's better for you to say it." After listening, Wang Lu looked at Feng Yin incredulously and said, "Sect leader, please use your brain when you speak. You know that I have a close relationship with Aya, yet you want me to personally say such hurtful words. Do you think that her psychological trauma is not deep enough?" Feng Yin said, "About this, I'm worried that if other people say it, they would be killed by her. When she returned to the Western continent with you, when she came back, her strength was not inferior to that of Dixian. Only a few people in Spirit Sword Mountain could withstand her sword. Then don't do this kind of suicidal thing. The dignified Night King of Bretonia, a supreme-level powerhouse, is your chef. What else is there to be dissatisfied with? Don't you know that with her strength, even her excrement is an immortal elixir for mortal creatures? Moreover, you know that you can't stop her Excalibur, but you still want to provoke her?" Feng Yin said with a wry smile, "Because we can't stop her Western continent delicacies. It's fine if she cooks some 9 regions' local dishes according to the recipe, but she insists on optimizing the traditional Bretonia delicacies. It's simply. Plus, recently she has repeatedly achieved good results in the poison group." When the good news spread back to Spirit Sword Mountain, the inner court disciples of the Misty Peak panicked. Some people even considered leaving the inner court and running to the Carefree Peak to be an outer court disciple. "This time, you tricked her into coming here in the name of gourmet development, right? During this period, you've been lying to her that everyone's response is very good, right? Then, have you ever thought about what will happen when she returns to Spirit Sword Mountain with this victory?" Wang Lu looked up, and in his mind Aya's smug face could not help but emerge. "After a long period of training, I have mastered the essence of gourmet food. This time, I will put a table of more than 500 dishes in the Bretonia banquet for everyone. Please enjoy it." Then, the Lingjian school that Feng Yin and the others had spent 150 years to rebuild would be destroyed in a day. Feng Yin Taoist master earnestly said, "Therefore, Wang Lu, as the lead disciple, you must bravely shoulder your responsibility. I ask you, as the sect leader, to take the responsibility first. Alas, you young people are like the sun in the morning. That's why I have a great future. I don't want to die." Initially, the employment contract was stamped with the sect's seal, which was signed by you, the sect leader. If you want to violate the contract, you have to do it yourself. Feng Yin was silent for a moment. "Very well, I'll go talk to her. By the way, I'll also tell her that you, in the name of gourmet development, invited her to develop poison." Wang Lu was shocked, thinking, "Uncle sect leader, can you be a little bit shameless? For the sect, I can sacrifice all personal honor and disgrace." Wang Lu had to take a deep breath. "Then I have to come up with a plan. You let Uncle Lucien build a new cafeteria in the Misty Peak, make it more beautiful, and then inform Aya to work in the new cafeteria. You can say that she has been working hard for many years and has been promoted, and now she has become the advanced profession of chef king. What if no one goes to eat? You can say that the new cafeteria is the responsibility of the chef king, and it has a very high standard. Ordinary people are not allowed to enter, only the inner court elites are eligible to go there. Then, you can ask Lucien to catch a few people who are not serious in their daily practice as sacrifices every few days." Feng Yin thought for a moment and slowly nodded. "Very well, I'll do as you say. After ending the conversation with sect leader Feng Yin, Wang Lu felt relaxed in the room. Aya's matter was secondary. What really concerned Wang Lu was that from now on, he no longer needed to think about how to face his junior brothers and sisters, who were also the current sect elders. After talking with Feng Yin, both sides had reached a tacit understanding. Let the dead die completely. What the world needed was a new Wang Lu, not a resurrected Ouyang Shang. Only by letting go of the past could he move forward. After thinking about this, Wang Lu stretched his waist, and the 206 sword bones made a crisp sound at the same time, bursting out the accumulated fatigue. Then he continued to bend down in front of the table and began to draft a new manuscript. Whether it was the providence of 9 regions or the future of Lingjian School, they were all long-term strategies. And the most important thing at the moment was this grand competition. After nearly a month of training, the 2,000-person team that the Wanxian League had placed high hopes on had made amazing progress. The 2 levels of King Pill and Yuanying were particularly obvious. But now it seemed that it was still not enough. Previously, Wang Lu had witnessed the King Pill level fight between Dixian Baizhe and his master. Wang Wu won that fight beautifully. However, in the entire 9 regions, Wang Wu's King Pill was unique. What's more, in order to give full play to the advantage of 9 regions, the plan of this grand competition was based on group fight. Even the King Pill level fight had to be the best of 5. However, Wang Wu alone was far from enough. Fortunately, there was still a month before the start of the competition. Moreover, after the start of the competition, the main event would be the literary event, so there was still some buffer time. As for how to make good use of this time and increase the odds of winning for the 2,000-person team as much as possible, it was his job as the chief planner. According to the previous month's report, the training strategy should be adjusted in time, and the trainers and team members of each project group should be optimized. The resources of the Wanxian League should be allocated carefully according to the weighted score of the competition and the hope of winning of the participating team. In theory, these tasks should need the support of a whole team of advisors in order to be arranged accurately. However, Wang Lu knew that there was no time to organize any team of advisors. Moreover, there were not many people in 9 regions who could keep up with his thinking. Therefore, all the heavy burden was put on Wang Lu alone. The plan was drafted by him and could be implemented after it was submitted to the head of the organizing committee for approval. Before that, Supreme He too, as the director, had never rejected any of Wang Lu's plans. Wang Lu wrote vigorously at the table until late at night. Finally, he raised his head and sighed wearily. Next, the training of peace and friendship will end here. Everyone get ready to taste the taste of hell. Chapter 605. Cross-level confrontation in groups? When he received Wang Lu's proposal, Hichu Daoren, as the person in charge of the organizing committee, was quite surprised. According to Wang Lu's plan, in the next month, the participating cultivators of each project group would have a cross-level confrontation. The 4 levels of King Pill, Yuanying, Deity, and Supreme would fight against each other and seriously decide the outcome. Can you explain it in more detail? Wang Lu said, it's like this. For us, the cultivators of 9 regions, this grand competition is essentially to pull the enemy to the same level as ourselves and try to fight the strong with the weak. However, the advantage of high-level cultivators in terms of vision, power utilization, and other aspects is not something that we can make up for with experience. What's more, most of those Dixian cultivators have gone up step by step from body refining and chi cultivating, so their experience is not weaker than ours. Therefore, if we want to win, we have to work hard in 2 aspects. One is to make full use of the rules, and the other is to do specific strengthening, how to face and win against opponents who are stronger than ourselves in the limited stage. Hichu Daoren said, so you designed this cross-level confrontation to let the cultivators experience different levels of fighting? But our Supreme Group seems to. Wang Lu said, yes, the Supreme Group can't find an opponent who is stronger than themselves. The confrontation with the other 3 groups is purely a sparring session, a waste of time. But in fact, in my plan, the supreme level is not the focus of the points at all. I don't know if you have calculated the points distribution of all the projects in my plan. The 3 levels of King Pill, Yuanying, and Unity account for more than 70% of the total points. If we can hold this part of the points in our hands, the overall situation can be expected. Hichu Daoren pondered for a moment and then asked, what's the matter with this punishment? Wang Lu explained with great interest, this is actually the essence of my supplementary plan. Think about it, according to human nature, when the low-level group loses to the high-level group, most of them will feel that the loss is a matter of course, while the win is inconceivable. During training they can't tap their full potential. Therefore it was necessary to add additional punishment measures. For the low-level group, if they couldn't defeat an opponent that was only at the level of a supreme, then wouldn't they lose without a doubt when fighting an earthly immortal? Thus, in order to stimulate their potential, punishment measures were necessary. For the high-ranking group, if they lost to the low-ranking group due to a moment of carelessness, it would be even more unforgivable. The punishment should be tripled. However, if we impose corporal punishment and cause harm to the cultivators, we won't have enough time for them to recuperate. If it affects their performance in the competition, the gains won't make up for the losses. To sum up, we came up with the current punishment plan. Hichu Daoren said, but if the committee were to implement such a plan, the pressure they would face would probably be, you don't have to worry about that. When the time comes, there will only be more people who will be happy to see it happen. It's just that no one will say it out loud. That's true. Hichu Daoren chuckled, then picked up a jade pen and signed his name on Wang Lu's proposal. Let's go with your plan. Even Wang Lu was a bit surprised to get the approval so readily. This time he directly submitted the plan to Hichu. He didn't expect him to pass it at once. There was still room for discussion in some of the details. Unexpectedly, Hichu trusted him so much. He seemed to be more cordial than his own elder. Thank you for your support, Supreme. I will not let you down. After Wang Lu left, a person slowly walked out from behind Hichu Daoren. Sect leader, aren't you too indulgent to Wang Lu? He is indeed talented and often has fantastic ideas. However, the grand competition is related to the overall situation of 9 regions, so it should be treated with caution. Even if we don't consider the interests of the sect, purely from the perspective of public interest, we should carefully consider it before making a decision. Hichu Daoren said, what about after consideration? Are you sure that your suggestion is better than his? No matter how powerful Wang Lu is, there are always places where he can't think it through. Hichu said, how long will it take for you to find out the shortcomings, improve it and convince Wang Lu and everyone else to accept your revision? I understand, but, Hichu said, I don't fully trust Wang Lu, but there's no need to question him for no reason. This grand competition is a gamble, so there's no time to deliberate on all the details. Then, it means that this grand competition will become his performance stage. You're wrong. No matter what kind of achievements Wang Lu has made, I am the person in charge of the organizing committee of the grand competition. Knowing people and appointing them well is the highest wisdom of a person in charge. Moreover, the protagonist of this grand competition is destined to be all the people in the Wuxia League. Wang Lu is just the protagonist. In addition, don't you think it's necessary to put more pressure on Qianghua? Qianghua, no matter what people from other sects say now, I always think that the best cultivator in 9 regions in the past 100 years is Qianghua. One day she will take over my position and become the new leader of the Wuxia League. She must also do this. Yes. At the same time, after getting the approval of Hichu, Wang Lu also began to officially implement his plan. In plentiful city of Southern Heaven region, Wang Lu held an emergency meeting and conveyed the instructions of Supreme Hichu to the person in charge of each division of the grand competition. After seeing Wang Lu's plan, naturally many people frowned. Among them, a Taoist master of deity stage who was in charge of the training in the eastern border region asked, Wang Lu, we can understand your idea of cross-level confrontation, but isn't this punishment too childish? Wang Lu said, if time permits, I also want to design a set of not childish plan that is enough to make the cultivators physically and mentally disabled so that every defeat is unforgettable, and then go all out to deal with the grand competition. But unfortunately we don't have that time, so we can only take an unconventional sword. But this sword is too unconventional. Those who lose in the competition are forced to participate in the beauty contest of the opposite sex. What kind of punishment is this? Wang Lu lightly said, you can use your imagination. The elder who asked the question froze for a moment. He thought that if he were to compete with Taoist Master Miao Yen, that would really be, boom. His condensed primordial spirit shook violently as if it was about to collapse. That scene was simply frightening. It's indeed a very shocking plan, but the majority of cultivators may not be able to accept it. Wang Lu said, yes, I have fully estimated the average IQ of today's Wuxia League. Therefore, it is necessary for the people in charge of each division to implement the plan in the shortest possible time. Of course, I will take the lead and set an example. Starting from the Jindan level group that I am currently in, I will challenge the Nascent Soul group, the Deity Transformation group and the Monarch group in turn. I will also be the leader of each challenge. If I am unfortunately defeated, the punishment will be doubled. In this way, I believe the voice of opposition will be much smaller. You want to take the lead in challenging the senior group? That's very sincere. The elder who had previously used his imagination nodded. His mind could not help but think that if Wang Lu was defeated and participated in the beauty contest of the opposite sex and was forced to dress up by Miao Yin, that seems pretty good? Wait a minute, why do I think it's good for a young man to change into a woman's dress? Just as this elder was dumbfounded and began to reflect on his own 3 views, someone else in the meeting room raised an opinion. If you are really willing to abandon your dignity and face, it's not impossible for us to cooperate with you to implement the plan. Alas, in the end, this grand competition is a matter of life and death, so it's really not the time to care about reputation. However, as a young man who has just entered the King Pill group, it's not necessary for you to challenge the 3 groups of Yuanying, Deity, and Supreme. I think it's enough for you to compete with the Yuanying group once. If you lose too many times, it would make your sacrifice seem like child's play. What's more, as the chief planner of this competition, it's necessary for you to have a certain amount of prestige. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was stunned. I don't intend to lose. What? The elder who suggested this was somewhat inconceivable. Are you really going to win? Among all the King Pill cultivators in 9 regions, Wang Lu could almost be ranked in the top 5 in terms of comprehensive fighting power, except for his master, the number 1 King Pill in 9 regions. Even those who had been at the peak of King Pill for hundreds of years had many evildoer means, and cross-stage challenges were commonplace. They had no certainty of winning against Wang Lu. However, cross-stage battles were different. King Pill fought against Yuanying or Deity. Moreover, they were the best among those in the same stage, so there was really no chance of winning. Although there were few such battles before, at least among the cultivators present, no one thought that they would lose to a King Pill, even if they suppressed their own stage to the level of King Pill. As you said, I am the chief planner of this competition. If I lose face in front of everyone, there will inevitably be resistance in the implementation of many plans. Therefore, I certainly have to win the next battle. Whether it's against Yuanying, Deity, or Supreme, I have to win. Seeing how resolute and decisive Wang Lu was, the others had nothing to say. Then you're on your own now. The elders had already said what they needed to say. Since Wang Lu was obstinate in seeking his own death, they could only let him be. Next, they just needed to sit back and watch the show. There was no doubt that it would be a good show. Speaking of which, according to the plan that Wang Lu just said, his first battle is to lead the King Pill group against the Yuanying group, right? Outside the venue, the 2 elders talked with their primordial spirit. Yes, in the Yuanying group, half of them are monsters from their Lingjian school. Haha, I was just thinking, I don't know if Wang Lu, this guy, can confidently say that he will win against our sect's elder. Chapter 606. Wang Lu, although our Lingjian school does trust you very much, it is precisely because of this that you should think twice before doing anything. In the face of the sea of people in the training field, the 4th elder of the Spirit Sword sect, Zhou Ming, showed a bitter look. He deeply hated those few martial brothers and sisters of the same sect who said that they could not come because of an unexpected illness. Regardless of their friendship, they sold him out. At the same time, he also hated himself for being careless and not paying attention to the latest notice, so he indifferently came to participate in the cross-level simulation. Then he met his precious disciple nephew, and his face immediately darkened. No matter who wins or loses this battle, it will become a stain on Lingjian school. When you designed the plan, didn't you consider the tragedy of fellow disciples killing each other? Wang Lu replied with a heavy expression, I just didn't consider that I would lose. I didn't expect that on the first day I would cheat my own elder. Alas, you must learn your lesson in the future. As soon as Zhou Ming finished speaking, he felt that something was wrong. Wait a minute, do you think you can win against me? Wang Lu explained, disciple doesn't dare. At the same time, a respectful and kind smile appeared on his face. And just when Zhou Ming nodded inwardly, thinking that this kid finally knew how to respect his teacher. But disciple also doesn't dare to lie to the elder, so I can only smile without saying a word. Uncle, please understand the true meaning of this. F***ck, what's the difference between this and saying it directly? I'm really old and muddle-headed to have expectations for the integrity of your non-phase peak people. Well, all these years we thought that we should let nature take its course for a genius like you. Indeed, we didn't take enough care of you. I didn't expect you to be so inflated that you don't even know the immensity of heaven and earth. While speaking, Zhou Ming took out 2 spirit swords, one ice and one fire, blue and red lingering around him. This was a top-grade spiritual treasure that had accompanied Zhou Ming for nearly 100 years. When the two swords combined, it was comparable to an immortal treasure. The two sword spirits were half virtual and half real, floating around the sword body. One was bright and beautiful like a painting, the other was cold and elegant. Both of them were beautiful girls with outstanding qualities. Wang Lu was shocked when he saw this. Fourth martial uncle, I didn't expect you to be such a person. Zhou Ming glared angrily. What do you take the sword spirit for? Moreover, isn't your sword spirit also a woman? You still have the cheek to criticize me? Wang Lu blinked his eyes and said, I'm from Non-Phase Peak. Have you given up on yourself? The more Zhou Ming spoke, the more irritated he became. He had always disapproved of this fight between fellow disciples, and Wang Lu looked so repulsive that he couldn't bear it any longer. Thereupon, Zhou Ming gently took a breath, and his immortal heart in his jade mansion slightly moved. Suddenly his figure, like a sword spirit, became half real and half illusory. Brilliant sword heart? Wang Lu's eyes narrowed. He knew that his fourth martial uncle had made his move, so he must be cautious. After being together with Lu Li for decades, he couldn't be more familiar with brilliant sword heart. A pure sword heart could be exchanged for the incomparable purity of the sword in his hand. The sword's main purpose was to kill, an ominous weapon. Under the blessing of brilliant sword heart, the sharpness and nimbleness of the sword would be brought into play to the extreme. Nothing could stop the flying sword. Lu Li was born with a colored glass heart, clear and transparent, untainted by the world of mortals. Her brilliant sword heart's accomplishment was also extremely high. Her cultivation progress had repeatedly made Zhou Ming exclaim in admiration, even to the point of being ashamed of his inferiority. Were it not for the fact that Lu Li's Skybreaker had lost its spirit and its power was greatly reduced, based on the power of her brilliant sword heart and Skybreaker, the most powerful King Pill level attack would never be the combination of Qianghua and Kill Immortal Sword. And now, such Lu Li was no longer a threat to Wang Lu. However, an elder was, after all, an elder, a survivor who inherited the legacy of the Golden Generation. Once he got serious, his strength and that of his disciples were on a completely different level. Just this brilliant sword heart alone. In Zhou Ming's hand, it was clearly several stages higher than Lu Li's. This half-real and half-illusory body had clearly transformed the body into sword intent, becoming a half-real and half-conceptual existence. Not only did it retain the high attack power of brilliant sword heart, but it also made up for the shortcomings of its defensive power. This was a realm that countless sword cultivators could only dream of. Zhou Ming's transformation also caused an uproar in the audience. Although it had long been known that the group of Yuanying stage disciples in the Heavenly Sword Hall of Lingjian School were all monsters, and any one of them had the strength to easily challenge those with higher stage than them, but this method of transforming the body into sword intent was still beyond the imagination of many people. Previously, when he fought with the cultivators in the same group, I've never seen him use this move. Could it be that he has been hiding his strength? Even if he hides his strength, he is still rated as one of the strongest Yuanying stage in 9 regions. How did these people in the Lingjian school cultivate? However, previously when he fought against the Yuanying stage opponents, he didn't use this move. Instead, he went all out against his own disciple. The rumor that everyone in the non-phase peak of Lingjian school wants to beat him seems to be true. In short, it seems like Wang Lu is going to lose. He's really reaping what he sowed by designing a punishment measure. This time, it's his turn to taste the taste of cross-dressing beauty contest. Hey fellow Taoist, why are you blushing? At the same time on the training field, Wang Lu also frowned. It's indeed a bit tricky, but if it was Zhou Ming, a peak Yuanying stage cultivator, Wang Lu wouldn't even be able to take one sword strike from him. However, this was, after all, a King Pill level fight, so it was impossible for Zhou Ming to show all his skills. Transforming his body into sword intent was an almost impossible task for someone in the King Pill level. At this time he was trying his best to do it, but he certainly couldn't last long. Moreover, the power of the sword wasn't completely unstoppable. Therefore, this was a battle where perseverance was the key to victory. As long as he could withstand the storm of Fourth Uncle's opening, he could see the dawn of victory. Wang Lu took a deep breath, held the rouge tears in his hand and pointed the sword downward. Uncle, please advise me. Before his voice fell, a white figure appeared behind Zhou Ming. Autumn Beam appeared like a ghost. Her right hand pinched the 4 sword shuttles condensed from primordial chaos sword chi and threw them out. This sneak attack was extremely sudden. Wang Lu didn't show the slightest change in his expression, but when he attacked, it was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Even the nascent soul and soul formation cultivators in the field didn't expect it. They all thought that Wang Lu, who specialized in defense, would use all his strength to defend against an opponent like Zhou Ming. No one expected him to do the opposite and boldly choose to attack Zhou Ming. Each of the 4 primordial chaos sword shuttles was condensed with Wang Lu's full strength. Only a sword spirit like Autumn Beam could preserve it in advance and hold it in her hand. And when the 4 swords attacked at the same time, no one in the King Pill level could take it lightly. After transforming his body into sword intent, Zhou Ming couldn't block it with his body. Moreover, Wang Lu's attack was so fast that he couldn't react in time due to the limitations of his realm. But the 2 sword spirits beside him acted as if they had foreseen it. The ice sword spirit spat out a faint orchid, and the ice sword turned into a blue icy wind that whistled forward, freezing the 4 primordial chaos sword shuttles in the air. At the same time, the fire sword spirit struck out a blazing fire fist with his right hand, shattering and burning the condensed sword shuttles. The 2 sword spirits, one in front and one behind, blocked the joint sneak attack of Wang Lu and Autumn Beam. But Wang Lu seemed to have expected it. While the 2 swords were focused on the sneak attack from behind, he raised rouge tears and stepped forward. With one step, he used his innate magical power of a blood-red setting sun, and with the other, he used his primordial chaos heaven-splitting sword qi. Zhou Ming pointed forward and his figure disappeared. A thin white line extended from where he stood, piercing through Wang Lu's chest before the primordial chaos heaven-splitting sword qi hit the ground. It was a quick stab. But after being stabbed in the vitals, Wang Lu didn't fall. Instead, he dispersed like smoke, disappearing without a trace along with the powerful primordial chaos sword qi. There was a moment of silence on the martial arts practice field. After a breath of time, someone in the audience suddenly exclaimed and pointed to the sky. Wang Lu's innate magical power did not disappear. The sky above the martial arts practice field was still blood-red, and among the rolling blood clouds, thousands of flying swords fell like a meteor shower. Wang Lu himself stood in the middle of the rain of flying swords, propping up his non-phase sword defense with his abundant magical power. With the binding force of the sword defense, he united the tens of thousands of flying swords, forming a huge meteorite-like hole. If this strike landed, the power that erupted would probably be comparable to Qionghua's Kill Immortal sword. Countless people in the audience were stunned. Unexpectedly, Wang Lu, who was known for his defense, had advanced his attack power to such a level. However, in the face of this appalling strike, Zhou Ming was not in a hurry. His mouth burst out a mantra, and then his 2 sword spirits linked their arms together, spinning and fusing into one, forming a simple red and blue sword. Then the heavy sword went straight to the sky, facing the meteorite formed by thousands of flying swords. Attack against attack. How could a cultivator with brilliant sword heart avoid such a challenge? The next moment, the heavy sword and the meteorite collided head-on. The unstoppable meteorite turned into thousands of sand-like specks of light in the air and then shattered. The rolling blood clouds in the sky also broke through the sky. Zhou Ming's ice and fire sword strike directly broke Wang Lu's innate magical power. However, after this strike, Zhou Ming's face sank slightly. Unlike what the audience saw, he didn't feel like he had won. That strike just now was not the victory of brilliant sword heart after a head-on collision. Instead, Wang Lu resolutely withdrew his power the moment before the collision. Thus, Zhou Ming's all-out strike only broke an empty shell. Wang Lu, this kid was too slippery. He completely saw his only weakness. It was difficult to fight for a long time while in the King Pill realm. Therefore he tried every possible way to delay the time. If he used his non-phase sword to defend with all his strength, he would undoubtedly lose. Thus he chose to attack, or feint. Every attack seemed to be an all-out attack, but every time before the head-on collision he promptly withdrew his hand. His timing was simply flawless. That was not his immediate reaction. Both of them were in the King Pill realm, so it was impossible for Wang Lu's reaction to be faster than Zhou Ming's. The only explanation was that every time Wang Lu made a move, he had already guessed Zhou Ming's response and responded in advance. But was this possible? Even if he and Lu Li had been together for many years and were very familiar with Brilliant Sword Heart, Zhou Ming's Brilliant Sword Heart and Lu Li's style were completely different. Although they had lived together on the Spirit Sword Mountain for more than 20 years, Zhou Ming and Wang Lu did not often deal with each other, nor did they have a serious sword fight before. However, Wang Lu grasped the details of this battlefield so accurately. Could it be that this kid? Could it be that when he had nothing to do, He has been secretly watching me? Thinking of this, Zhou couldn't help but feel a chill down his back. Wang Lu, you kid, didn't plan this cross-dressing beauty contest out of personal hobby? Have you really been tortured by your master that you lost hope in women? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.